Chapter 629. Little Zhuoma. Uncle Zhua cried out in grief. His stooped body trembled slightly, because the bull demon king was holding the little girl in his hand. How could he not be terrified? Grandpa! Uncle Zhua's appearance immediately made the little girl's eyes fill with tears. After all, she was still young. How could she not be terrified now that she was in the hands of a monster? Your Majesty, please spare me. If you want to eat people, then eat me. Please let go of my granddaughter. She's still a child. Uncle Zhua's face was pale as he staggered towards the bull demon king. Clearly, this old man who was about to die trembled when his granddaughter was in the hands of the bull demon king. He was deeply afraid that the bull demon king would eat the little girl. It should be known that monsters eating people was not a rare occurrence. Even in the Aparagodania continent, where Buddhism originated, it happened from time to time. How could Uncle Zhua not be terrified? Uncle Zhua pleaded sorrowfully. He had already arrived before the bull demon king and directly knelt at his feet. He kept shaking the bull demon king's trousers as tears flowed from his eyes. Old man, don't be afraid. I don't kill the innocent. There was no bloody massacre as expected, and the bull demon king did not destroy the entire village. The bull demon king smiled and actually put the little girl down. Uncle Zhua hurriedly pulled Zhuoma behind him and kowtowed to the bull demon king in gratitude. Old man, I'm very easy to talk to, and I don't eat people. Today, I've come to your precious land to find a person. As long as you tell me where this person is, I promise I won't make things difficult for you. The bull demon king smiled and unrolled the scroll again. This time, Yi Xian's face appeared in front of Uncle Zhua's eyes. The villagers could also see Yi Xian in the scroll. Looking at Yi Xian's face in the scroll, Uncle Zhua's eyes narrowed. Then, he pretended to be confused and shook his head. Your Majesty, I've never seen this person before. Why are you looking for him? Looking at Uncle Zhua's perplexed expression, the bull demon king narrowed his eyes and looked around at the villagers. When he looked at the villagers, they all avoided his gaze. They didn't dare to look him in the eyes for even a moment. You don't know this person either? Asked the bull demon king coldly. Your Majesty, we really don't know this person. How would we dare to offend your Majesty? Zhang Qinghe's face was deathly pale as he continuously kowtowed to the bull demon king. It was as if he really didn't know Yi Xian. Haha. Suddenly, the bull demon king let out a wild laugh. His laughter shook the heavens and earth, causing the villagers of Little Rock Village to cover their ears and scream in pain. They all fell to the ground like a pile of mud, looking at the bull demon king with fear in their eyes. You damned mortals, how dare you offend this king? Aren't you afraid that this king will kill all of you here? The bull demon king's laughter stopped. The grand luo demonic light permeated the air, causing the entire world to tremble violently. An extremely terrifying baleful aura pressed down on the villagers, causing them to feel a sense of death. Your Majesty, how could we dare to offend your Majesty? It's just that we really don't know this person that you're talking about, Zhang Qinghe said sorrowfully. That's right, your Majesty. We're only mortals. How would we have the courage to offend you? Li Dazhuang kowtowed and cried. Clearly, the villagers were tight-lipped. They could already tell that the bull demon king came with ill intentions. The villagers all agreed. However, although they hid it well, the bull demon king was experienced and ruthless. How could he not see the hesitation in the eyes of some of the villagers? Clearly, the person he was looking for was in Little Rock Village. It was just that these ignorant mortals were lying to him. Come! Just as the villagers were begging bitterly, the bull demon king waved his hand and directly sucked a 5 or 6-year-old child over. The child's parents screamed and fainted on the ground. Little friend, do you know the person in this picture? The ox demon king held the child in his hands as he asked in a light voice. This caused the countenances of the villagers to drastically change. Zhang Qinghe wanted to speak, but before he could, the ox demon king narrowed his eyes as a demonic beam of light froze him in place. There was no way for him to speak. Yi, brother Yi. He's brother Yi from Zhuoma's family. The child was only 5 or 6 years old and had not fully developed his intelligence. Moreover, he had fallen into the hands of a great demon like the bull demon king. At this moment, he was already extremely scared. How would he dare to lie? Brother Yi? The bull demon king's eyes lit up. He reached out his hand and sucked the child's parents over. Then he said to the child, "Who is Zhuo Ma? Who is Brother Yi? As long as you tell me, I promise I won't hurt your parents." "Father, mother." Looking at his unconscious parents, the child screamed in fear. He kept kicking and hitting the bull demon king. Unfortunately, how could he break free from the bull demon king's hands? "Speak." The bull demon king glared at Qin Wentian, gradually losing his patience. His sinister roar rang out, causing the child to be petrified. She's little Zhuoma. Brother Yi lives in Zhuoma's family." The child pointed at the little girl and said with a trembling voice. Bang! As the child finished speaking, the bull demon king casually threw the child to the ground. He looked at the grandfather and granddaughter pair with a pair of sinister eyes. "Little girl, you've tricked me so badly," the bull demon king said gloomily, and walked towards the little girl step by step. This caused the grandfather and granddaughter pair to continuously retreat. Their eyes were filled with extreme fear. "Don't come any closer." Uncle Zhuo trembled and roared. A shoulder pole appeared in his hand out of nowhere. He even shielded the little girl behind him. However, his slightly hunched figure could not be compared to the bull demon king's. "Your Majesty, the person you're looking for has really left. He only stayed in our little rock village for a period of time. We really don't dare to tell you." Zhang Qinghe had recovered his ability to move. He explained with a trembling voice. The other villagers all nodded, hoping that the bull demon king would not make things difficult for the grandfather and granddaughter pair. Left. The bull demon king's breath stopped. He clenched his fists tightly, and an unimaginable evil aura spread out. The bull demon king did not think that Zhang Qinghe was lying. It had been a long time since he came to Little Rock Village, but the murderer of his child had yet to appear. This left him extremely puzzled, and he guessed that the other party might have already left. After all, the bull demon king had heard from the two great demons that the other party was a grand heavenly immortal. If the other party was really in Little Rock Village, he would not have holed himself up like a turtle. "Tell me, where did he go?" The bull demon king stared coldly at the grandfather and granddaughter pair. Grand heavenly immortal demonic light spread out from his body, and an extremely obscure killing intent flashed across his eyes. "I don't know. I really don't know. He's someone with great ability. Since he chose to leave, why would he tell us where he went?" Chapter 630. Uncle Zhuo trembled as he replied. However, he was old and experienced, so he could already sense the bull demon king's killing intent. This caused despair to appear in Uncle Zhuo's eyes. The little girl hid behind her grandfather and reprimanded the bull demon king in a trembling voice. "Stinking monster, you'd better run. Otherwise, when Brother Yi finds out that you bullied us, he won't let you off." "Little Zhuoma, shut up." Uncle Zhuo's expression changed as he hurriedly reprimanded his granddaughter. He glared at the bull demon king and pulled the little girl back. "Haha." Hearing the little girl's reprimand, the bull demon king laughed maniacally. However, his laughter was extremely cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at the grandfather and granddaughter duo. "Won't let this king off. You stinking girl, do you know who this king is?" The bull demon king sneered. "Since he's not in the village, does that mean that you ants are of no use to this king?" The bull demon king held the black gold trident in his hand as he slowly raised his gigantic ox fists. Demonic light gushed out from his body, causing the space around him to explode. Evidently, he had already decided to kill Qin Wentian. "Little Zhuoma, run." Uncle Zhuo's face was pale as he firmly shielded the little girl behind him. Unfortunately, at this moment, the bull demon king smiled savagely and threw a punch at the grandfather and granddaughter duo, clearly intending to kill them on the spot. Rumble! The demonic light of Grand Luo pierced the sky as killing intent soared into the heavens. The bull demon king's punch was too terrifying. Not to mention mere mortals. Even immortals would be reduced to ashes by this punch. "Grandpa!" Little Zhuoma cried out in grief. At this moment, the bull demon king's terrifying fist had already enveloped the grandfather and granddaughter duo. This caused the villagers to scream in fear and turn their heads away, unable to bear to watch the tragic scene that was about to unfold. Buzz. Time seemed to stop and space seemed to freeze. Golden light pierced through the sky, and at this critical moment, a speck of golden light appeared in front of the little girl's chest, instantly enveloping the grandfather and granddaughter duo. There was no heaven-shaking boom, nor was there an earth-shattering explosion. The Bull Demon King's fist was annihilated inch by inch until it dissipated into smoke. Grand Luo Talisman? Suddenly the Bull Demon King let out a low roar. His pair of bull eyes were completely lifeless. It was as if he had fallen into an indescribable state of shock. Little Zhuoma, are you all right? Within the golden light, Uncle Zhuo quickly opened his eyes. When he sensed the gentle golden light around him, his face flushed red. He quickly asked the little girl, "What's the matter?" "Jade pendant. Brother Yi gave me the jade pendant. It was Brother Yi who saved us." Little Zhuoma pointed excitedly at the jade pendant that was glowing with golden light, as it spoke in an excited voice. "Everyone coming quickly!" Uncle Zhuo exclaimed excitedly. While the Bull Demon King was still in a daze, he hurriedly pulled Zhuoma over to the villagers. The golden light of the Daoyuo talisman also protected the villagers. "Brother Yi is indeed an immortal," Zhang Qinghe muttered excitedly. "Daoyuo talisman? It's actually a Daoyuo talisman?" At this moment, the Bull Demon King's lifeless eyes gradually regained their clarity. He stared fixedly at the Daoyuo talisman in the air with an extremely grave expression of bewilderment. As a figure of the second watershed of Grand Luo, the Bull Demon King knew very well that the person who could create the Daoyuo talisman was a terrifying figure of the third watershed of Grand Luo. Although the attack just now was merely a casual one, it was blocked by the Daoyuo talisman. That did not shock the Bull Demon King. What truly shocked him was the person who created the talisman. The third watershed of Grand Luo, that was a supreme figure who reigned supreme in the world. In the three realms where quasi-saints did not appear, who would dare to make an enemy of the third watershed of Grand Luo? He, the Bull Demon King, was merely a figure of the second watershed of Grand Luo. How could he be a match for such a terrifying figure? Fine beads of sweat appeared on the Bull Demon King's forehead, as an indescribable fear grew in his heart. The Bull Demon King was not afraid of the so-called Daoyuo talisman. With his cultivation base of the second watershed of Grand Luo, the Daoyuo talisman would disappear without a trace under his relentless attacks. These mortals would also die in his hands. After all, although the talisman was powerful, it was not Yi Xian himself. What the Bull Demon King was truly afraid of was the person who created the talisman. If that person really appeared, he would definitely face a crisis of life and death. Kill or leave? A multiple-choice question was placed before the Bull Demon King. The Bull Demon King had already given up on the idea of revenge because he knew that it was impossible. The third watershed of Grand Luo was not someone he could afford to offend. Even if it was for the death of his son, he could only endure it. However, the Bull Demon King was extremely unwilling to leave just like that. He would also be unable to answer to Princess Iron Fan. So what if it's the third watershed of Grand Luo? Today, I'll slaughter all of you foolish mortals. When I go to Spirited Mountain to seek the help of Gautama Buddha, I don't believe that this person is a match for Gautama Buddha. Suddenly, the Bull Demon King's eyes turned ferocious. He had already made up his mind, and a murderous intent grew in his eyes. For the Bull Demon King to be able to run rampant in the Aparagodania for so many years, he naturally had a deep relationship with Spirited Mountain. Moreover, one should not forget that he was sworn brothers with that monkey in the past. For the sake of the fighting immortal Buddha, the various Buddhas would definitely not sit idly by. You lowly and ignorant ants, all of you can die for this king. The Bull Demon King roared in a deranged manner. The black golden trident danced in the void, and the Grand Luo demonic light shot out, smashing directly at the Daoyuo talisman. Bang! 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 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, the void exploded and the heaven and earth shook. The Bull Demon King attacked the Daoyuo talisman in a frenzy. This caused the Daoyuo talisman to crack inch by inch. After all, this item was casually made by Yi Xian. The Bull Demon King was a figure of the second watershed of Grand Luo. This Daoyuo talisman could only hold him back for a moment. Grandpa, I'm scared. Under the cover of the Daoyuo talisman, The little girl's face was pale, and her eyes were filled with fear. This was because she could see that the Daluo talisman was cracking inch by inch. Clearly, it would not be long before it was shattered by the Bull Demon King. Don't be scared, don't be scared. Grandpa is here. Uncle Zhua kept comforting the little girl, but a look of despair flashed across his eyes. Crack! Suddenly, a crisp sound came from the void. The Daluo talisman was completely shattered. The grandfather and granddaughter, as well as the villagers, were completely exposed to the Bull Demon King. You lowly ants! Do you really think that I won't dare to kill you just because you have the protection of the third watershed of Grand Luo? The Bull Demon King roared ferociously. With the black golden trident in his hand, he strode towards the villagers. With every step he took, the earth shook violently. His terrifying power was extremely terrifying. If you dare to take another step forward, I can guarantee that you will die without a burial place. It was as if the 9 heavens were churning, and the stars were falling from the sky. An indifferent voice came from all directions, and a slender figure was strolling over from the horizon. Chapter 631. Rumble. Clouds gathered and the world darkened. Thousands of bolts of lightning rampaged in the dark clouds, and the azure bolts of lightning streaked across the sky, making this figure seem even more imposing. Thump, thump, thump. The world turned upside down and the sun and moon lost their luster. A heaven-defying might engulfed the world and caused space-time to slightly distort. The origin immortal light faintly bloomed around Yi Xian's body, as if he was the only thing in the world, and all living beings had to prostrate before his feet. The vast sky rumbled with the might of the heavens. When Yi Xian walked step by step towards Little Rock Village, the Bull Demon King's expression changed drastically. His footsteps unconsciously retreated. Big brother Yi. A young and trembling voice called out. The little girl had broken free from Uncle Zhua's embrace and was waving at Yi Xian in the sky. Her young face was flushed red as she looked up at Yi Xian with an indescribable sense of worship. Perhaps every child dreamed of being a hero, and this little girl was no exception. When the grandfather and granddaughter were in mortal danger and Little Rock Village was about to be destroyed by the Bull Demon King, Yi Xian appeared at the right time and became the hero in the little girl's heart. Of course, Yi Xian didn't care about the word hero. When the Great Luo Spirit Talisman was attacked, Yi Xian felt it in his mind. This caused him to speed up and return to Little Rock Village. In the end, he prevented the tragedy of Little Rock Village from happening. Yi Xian quietly appeared in front of the grandfather and grandson pair as he walked through the sky. This caused the little girl to clench her fists tightly as she looked at Yi Xian with excitement. Big brother Yi, I knew you would come back. Zhuoma excitedly cheered. Little Yi, you must be careful. Although Uncle Zhua had already guessed that Yi Xian was not immortal, he was still worried when Yi Xian revealed his cultivation. After all, the Bull Demon King had a frightening appearance, and no one knew if Yi Xian was a match for the Bull Demon King. So Uncle Zhua had to warn him. De Luo Pinnacle? The Bull Demon King spat out these 4 words with great difficulty. Fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He looked at Yi Xian with a look of extreme fear. With just one glance, the Bull Demon King felt an unimaginable sense of oppression from the person in front of him. Just the indifferent and emotionless gaze of the other party was enough to make his soul tremble. Who are you, fellow Taoist? The Bull Demon King kept on retreating. His heart was trembling to the extreme, afraid that Yi Xian would suddenly attack. If that happened, he would definitely suffer a calamity of life and death. But for some reason, the Bull Demon King felt that he had seen Yi Xian somewhere before. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't recall where he had seen him before. This was also why he was bewildered, but in his heart, he was already thinking of retreating. What kind of joke was this? A peak golden immortal realm expert wanting to kill him, the Bull Demon King, was simply as easy as eating or drinking. So how could the Bull Demon King not be terrified to the extreme? Bull Demon King? Yi Xian had his hands behind his back as he looked calmly at the Bull Demon King. Even though he had never seen this person before, he could guess most of the Bull Demon King's identity just by looking at his appearance. When he connected this to the red boy that he had killed earlier, He already knew why the Bull Demon King had appeared here. OM. The world froze as immortal light surged. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He didn't want to waste any more words with the Bull Demon King. Since the Bull Demon King had come to seek revenge for his son, he would directly kill him. Wait! The Bull Demon King roared in a trembling voice, as he looked at the golden immortal light radiating from Yi Xian's body. He said, "Fellow Taoist, I'm afraid there's some misunderstanding between us. Please calm down and listen to this old bull." "Die," Yi Xian said indifferently. His sword-like finger was like a heavenly sword as he gently pointed at the void. The world within thousands of miles rumbled, as that strand of ascension immortal light was born between heaven and earth, turning into a stream of heavenly river that fell towards the Bull Demon King. The murderous intent of the heavenly emperor, the annihilation of all laws. This wasn't just a saying. At this moment, even though Yi Xian hadn't become a quasi-saint, his true cultivation was at the peak of golden immortal realm. Not to mention, he had many trump cards in his hands. How could a mere Bull Demon King be his match? Change. The Bull Demon King's face instantly turned pale. He didn't think that Yi Xian would attack just like that. He didn't even give him a chance to explain. This also caused him to directly use his trump card, not daring to hold back at all. A strand of hair that was dazzling with golden light, and even contained the sacred might of Buddhism, turned into a golden light screen that covered the Bull Demon King within. Bang! There was a sky-shattering explosion as heaven and earth shook. The Bull Demon King was directly sent flying by the stream of heavenly river. However, the light screen formed by the strand of golden hair covered him, and didn't cause him any life-threatening danger. Such a scene made Yi Xian slightly stunned. He stared at the Bull Demon King, and a trace of shock flashed across his eyes. One should know that his attack seemed casual, but it was still at the peak of golden immortal realm after all. Even if the Bull Demon King wasn't killed by him on the spot, he would at least be severely injured and on the verge of death. However, this golden light screen was actually able to block his attack, which made Yi Xian feel surprised and doubtful. Run! Without any hesitation or stopping, the Bull Demon King didn't dare to utter a single word of nonsense. When facing a peerless, ferocious person like Yi Xian, at this moment, he only had the hope of surviving by running away from this place. Boom! Demonic light pierced through the sky and cut through the void. The Bull Demon King let out a bull's roar. Under the protection of the golden light screen, he directly turned into a stream of light and fled into the distance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Do you think you can escape? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and a soul-stealing killing intent flashed across his eyes. His voice reverberated between heaven and earth. When he took a step forward, he disappeared before the eyes of the villagers. Brother Yi, Yi Xian chased after the Bull Demon King, which made the little girl call out loudly. She waved her fists as she looked at Yi Xian's back with adoration. Fortunately, Brother Yi returned in time. Otherwise, we would have all died at the hands of this monster, Zhang Qinghe said after surviving a calamity. As Zhang Qinghe's words fell, the villagers all nodded in agreement. The grandfather and grandson even smiled happily. However, no one noticed that a pair of blood-red, malicious eyes were staring at them viciously from an inconspicuous mound of dirt. In the boundless sky, in the vast void, the Bull Demon King seemed to have turned into a stray dog, as he fled in a sorry state in the sky. Large amounts of blood continuously spurted out from his mouth. His sturdy body was even more battered as large amounts of blood stained his entire body. Yi Xian strolled behind the Bull Demon King. However, with every step he took, he maintained a distance of 3 meters from the Bull Demon King. No matter what escape technique the Bull Demon King used, he was unable to shake off Yi Xian. Just who are you? The Bull Demon King roared. His eyes were filled with extreme humiliation, because he couldn't escape from Yi Xian's grasp at all. Even the golden hairs that protected him had dispersed. Chapter 632. Transform. The second strand of golden hair was blasted out by the Ox King, once again enveloping him. However, his body staggered as an extremely terrifying force blasted him away once again. If it wasn't for the golden hair saving his life, the Ox King's soul would have surely been scattered into nothingness from the impact. At this moment, Yi Xian strolled and stopped attacking the Bull Demon King. He just strolled behind him. The two of them chased and fled towards the west. In fact, even if the Bull Demon King had the golden hair to protect his life, it would be easy for Yi Xian to kill him. After all, Yi Xian was an invincible existence among the Daluo Jingxian. However, Yi Xian didn't kill the Bull Demon King directly, because he had his own reasons. A Paragodania continent, Emerald Cloud Mountain. Emerald Cloud Mountain was a desolate ancient mountain and a blessed land. The person who occupied Emerald Cloud Mountain was the famous Princess Iron Fan. Princess Iron Fan's cultivation wasn't high. She was only at the second heavenly layer of the Daluo realm, and was the Bull Demon King's wife. However, her reputation in the Paragodania continent was even more terrifying than the Bull Demon King. This was because Princess Iron Fan had an eternal spiritual treasure called the Banana Fan. It was an extremely terrifying innate spiritual treasure that contained unimaginable power. Even the Daluo Jingxian was in danger of dying under this treasure. It was also because Princess Iron Fan had the Banana Fan that she made a great name for herself in the Paragodania continent. Even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas had to give her some face. "Madam, save me." Suddenly, a beam of demonic light descended towards the Emerald Cloud Mountain. The Bull Demon King was calling for help, causing the entire Emerald Cloud Mountain to rumble. It was also at this moment that a beam of green light shot up into the sky and appeared in front of the Bull Demon King. "Who injured you, Stinky Bull?" Princess Iron Fan was wearing a green dress. Her makeup was light and charming. She was indeed a rare beauty. At this moment, she frowned and looked at her husband in surprise. "Madam, please allow me to explain to you later." Bull Demon King panted heavily as he spoke. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian quietly appeared in front of the couple, looking at them calmly. "Who are you, fellow Taoist?" Yi Xian's appearance caused Princess Iron Fan's expression to change slightly. Although she was only at the second heavenly layer of the Grand Luo realm, she was someone who had lived for countless years. Naturally, she could sense that Yi Xian's cultivation was extremely terrifying. "The people who will kill you," Yi Xian said calmly without any fluctuations, as if he was talking about something very casual. However, when Princess Iron Fan heard this, she clenched her teeth and a cold smile appeared on her lips. Whoosh! Princess Iron Fan opened her cherry lips and spat out a 3-inch fan. As the wind blew, the 3-inch fan expanded in the wind until it was 3 feet in size. Princess Iron Fan held it in her hand. "Banana fan?" Yi Xian smiled. However, his smile was extremely unfathomable. He looked at Princess Iron Fan with a deep gaze and said, "This treasure can't save your lives." Arrogant. Princess Iron Fan's brows were filled with killing intent. As she reprimanded, she waved the banana fan in her hand, causing the world to turn illusory. An unimaginable gale suddenly rose. The fan could destroy mountains and rivers and melt bones. The banana fan was a famous treasure in the 3 realms. It was divided into 2 sides, yin and yang. It nurtured yin and yang gales. Even Daluo Jingxian did not dare to touch it at all. When Princess Iron Fan waved the banana fan, the yin and yang gales whistled out. There was even lightning fire sunflower water contained within, instantly enveloping Yi Xian. "Madam, well done." When Bull Demon King saw Yi Xian being engulfed by the yin and yang gales, he laughed out loud. However, before he could stop laughing, the following scene left him dumbfounded on the spot. It also caused his robust body to tremble silently. The world distorted as the void froze. The so-called yin and yang gales dissipated, gradually revealing Yi Xian's figure. They did not deal any damage to Yi Xian at all. Impossible. Such a scene changed Princess Iron Fan's expression drastically. She constantly retreated with the banana fan in hand. The way she looked at Yi Xian was filled with extreme horror. It was no wonder Princess Iron Fan reacted in such a manner. No one knew how terrifying the banana fan was better than her. After all, back when the monkey traveled west, he had suffered greatly under the banana fan. If the monkey had not used the air-frozen bead to deal with the banana fan, he would probably have died under the banana fan. However, this person clearly did not have the air-frozen bead in hand. He had actually used his physical strength to withstand the yin and yang gales in the banana fan. This was unimaginable to Princess Iron Fan. Fellow Taoist, who are you? I wonder if we have offended you in any way. Princess Iron Fan probed solemnly. This was because Princess Iron Fan knew that with such a terrifying cultivation level, Yi Xian was definitely not a nobody in the three realms. Clearly, he was a Tongti on great divine power. This also made her ponder over Yi Xian's origins. However, no matter how Princess Iron Fan guessed, she could not recall such a terrifying figure in the world. Yi Tiandi? You are Yi Tiandi? Suddenly, an exclamation came from behind Princess Iron Fan. The Bull Demon King's eyes froze as he pointed at Yi Xian with a trembling finger, as though he had discovered something extremely terrifying. Previously, the Bull Demon King had felt that Yi Xian looked familiar, but he could not recall where he had seen Yi Xian. However, when the banana fan was unable to do anything to Yi Xian, a thought flashed through the Bull Demon King's mind. He finally remembered. Wasn't Yi Xian's appearance the same as the three realms' celestial emperors? You recognize me? Yi Xian smiled. He didn't expect the Bull Demon King to recognize him. However, Yi Xian wasn't surprised. After all, as the master of the three realms, he was the center of attention of all living beings in the three realms. It wasn't strange for others to know his appearance. Upon hearing Yi Xian's words, the couple's breathing froze as fear appeared in their eyes. They had never expected that the dignified celestial emperor of the three realms would appear in front of them. Celestial Emperor Yi. Killing people is nothing more than a nod of the head. We, husband and wife, have been cultivating in seclusion in the Aparagodania continent and have never offended you. Princess Iron Fan put away her banana fan. She knew that even if she and her husband joined forces, they would definitely not be a match for Yi Xian. Madam, he killed Red Boy. Without waiting for Yi Xian to speak, the Bull Demon King growled. This also stunned Princess Iron Fan. She didn't recover from her shock for a few breaths of time. What did you say? Princess Iron Fan slowly turned her head. Her voice was trembling, and her eyes were slightly red. Madam, don't be silly. He killed Red Boy. At this moment, he wants to silence you and me. The Bull Demon King growled. Ever since he knew Yi Xian's true identity, he knew that he was doomed today. This was because everyone in the three realms knew that Yi Tiandi was merciless. Very few people could walk out of his hands alive. Chapter 633. You killed my child. Princess Iron Fan gritted her teeth. Her eyes were already red to the extreme. She suddenly looked at Yi Xian with a hysterical voice. I'll send your family off today, Yi Xian said calmly as he strolled towards the couple. He didn't kill the Bull Demon King because he wanted to find Princess Iron Fan. Now that the couple was here, he could just send them off. Madam, leave quickly. While Princess Iron Fan was grieving, the Bull Demon King's body surged with demonic light. He actually didn't hesitate to consume his own blood essence to forcefully raise his cultivation to the 6th layer of Grand Heavenly Realm. He even snatched the banana fan from Princess Iron Fan's hand and charged towards Yi Xian. Husband! Princess Iron Fan sobered up from her grief and cried out in grief. Immortal light surged around her, as she clearly wanted to fight alongside the Bull Demon King. If I die, so be it. You have to live well. The Bull Demon King roared as he swung the banana fan towards Yi Xian. Clearly, he didn't care about his life to fight for Princess Iron Fan's slim chance of survival. You're courting death. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes as a cruel smile appeared on his lips. Even though the Bull Demon King had consumed his blood essence to forcefully raise his cultivation, and had a connate spiritual treasure like the banana fan in his hand, the Bull Demon King was still just an ant to Yi Xian. Bang! Yi Xian's palm was like the sky, capable of annihilating everything. His palm strike caused the Bull Demon King's body to crack as blood spurted out from his mouth. If it wasn't for the banana fan blocking most of the attacks for him, Yi Xian's strike would have shattered his soul. Stinking Bull, I'll help you. They had been husband and wife for many years. Although they had been in a cold war for many years, they were of the same mind. When Princess Iron Fan saw the Bull Demon King bathed in blood, how could she abandon him and flee this place alone? Go. If the old bull dies, so be it. You have to live well. Crack. As the bull demon king roared, one of his horns was cruelly broken by Yi Xian. The blood that gushed out dyed his entire body, and he let out a blood-curdling scream. Boom! With a punch, the bull demon king's heart was penetrated. Yi Xian was too unfathomable, and his cultivation was too terrifying. He punched through the bull demon king's heart, and when he pulled out his palm, a fiery demon heart throbbed in his hand. Old bull! Such a miserable scene caused Princess Ironfan to burst into tears. She even staggered towards the bull demon king. Her gaze towards Yi Xian was filled with endless hatred. Let's go, let's go. One person dying is better than two dying. The bull demon king spat out a mouthful of blood and roared. His demon heart exploded in Yi Xian's hand, and blood essence slowly flowed out from his entire body. However, the banana fan in his hand became even more terrifying as it continuously fanned out yin and yang astral winds to block Yi Xian's advance. Although the banana fan couldn't cause any harm to Yi Xian, it wasn't difficult for it to stop him for a moment. This made Yi Xian frown slightly as a sinister glint flashed in his eyes. You two sure have deep feelings for each other. Today, I'll send you both on your way. Rumble. The world shook as everything distorted. Yi Xian slowly raised his right fist. His eyes rotated slightly as a speck of demonic light grew on his fist, causing the world to turn completely dark. Madam Run, do you want me to die here for nothing? Looking at the terrifying demonic light around Yi Xian, the bull demon king's eyes were filled with anxiety and despair. Tears of blood flowed down from his eyes as he turned back and roared at Princess Ironfan. I'll go, I'll go. Looking at the tears of blood in the bull demon king's eyes, Princess Ironfan burst into tears. However, she stared at Yi Xian with eyes as cold and hateful as a venomous snake. Yi Xian, I want you to remember that you killed my son and my husband. As long as I, Princess Ironfan, don't die, I will eat your flesh and drink your blood, even if I have to sink into the flames of the underworld forever, and never be reincarnated. Princess Ironfan screamed with hatred as her vicious curses echoed in the world. She clenched her fists tightly as tears of blood flowed out of her eyes. She deeply imprinted the bull demon king's figure in her mind, and without any hesitation, she shot towards Mount Numinous in the west. Great demonic fist! Yi Xian's heartless voice echoed in the world for thousands of miles. The earth-shattering demonic fist of the Tongtian released a demonic light that had never been seen before as it blasted towards the bull demon king. Yi Xian, you'll die a horrible death. The bull demon king went completely mad. He wailed loudly as tears of blood rolled down from his eyes. He knew that he would definitely die today, but in order to fight for a chance for Princess Ironfan to escape, he had to fight with all his might. Bang! 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 The banana fan exploded in the bull demon king's hand. His body swelled terrifyingly as a series of explosions rang out. The bull demon king had chosen to self-destruct with the banana fan. However, the terrifying power of the self-destruction was still heading towards Yi Xian. The bull demon king was a figure at the second watershed of the grand heavenly immortal realm. The energy of his self-detonation was comparable to the attack of the third watershed of the grand heavenly immortal realm. The palm leaf fan was a connate spirit treasure. Now that it had self-detonated in his hand, the two terrifying forces combined to unleash a devastating blow. Rumble! Heaven and earth exploded, and the mountains and rivers shattered. When the great demonic fist and the bull demon king's self-detonation collided, the heaven and earth collapsed inch by inch. The mountains were vaporized into smoke, and everything was turned into dust. The energy that leaked out was shot out in all directions. Bang! 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 Tens of thousands of miles of land collapsed as the boundless void collapsed. Dust was swirling in the world. The scene of destruction was simply unbearable to look at. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew and blew the dust away. In the sky, Yi Xian's eyes were sinister. His eyes shone through tens of thousands of miles of the void, as he constantly searched for the whereabouts of Princess Ironfan. She actually escaped. Yi Xian's eyes were as gloomy as water. The aura around him was extremely tyrannical. Above the sky in the void, Yi Xian had his hands behind his back. The aura around him was gloomy. After dozens of breaths, his tyrannical mood gradually calmed down. Then, he looked towards the direction of the great thunderclap temple on Spirited Mountain in the west. A profound look flashed across his eyes when he opened and closed them. Escape to Spirited Mountain in the west? Western heaven and earth. A green immortal cloud shot through the sky. Blood and tears flowed from Princess Ironfan's eyes. She would never forget the miserable shriek of the Ox Demon King before his death. She would never forget Yi Xian personally crushing her husband's demon heart in his hand. She had killed her son and her husband. This was a blood feud. Princess Ironfan wanted to fight Yi Xian to the death. However, she knew that she could not turn back. If she did so, the Ox Demon King's sacrifice would have been in vain. Yi Xian, I will grind your bones to dust. I will eat your flesh and drink your blood. Princess Ironfan screamed. Her vicious curses came from the sky. This voice was like a malicious spirit that crawled out from hell. It made one's hair stand on end. I can't die. I can't die. Spirited Mountain, Spirited Mountain. Princess Ironfan had already gone mad. Her heart was filled with endless hatred. She kept murmuring hatefully and madly shot towards Spirited Mountain in the west. This was because Spirited Mountain was her last hope. Chapter 634. On a Tongtian Divine Mountain, there was a vast temple. Auspicious clouds flowed in the sky, and auspicious Buddhist light shone everywhere. Buddhist chants could be heard from all directions. The great thunderclap temple of the Western Mystical Mountain was one of the strongest orthodoxies in the world. It was founded by the two saints of the West. There were countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and its foundation was unimaginably powerful. The world only knew that there was Gautama Buddha in Mystical Mountain, and his Buddhist techniques were top-notch in the three realms. However, very few people knew that although Duobao Rulai was in charge of Mystical Mountain, he was not necessarily the strongest person. 3,000 truths, 8 division heavenly dragons, Bodhisattvas, Buddhas, Vajra Arhats. If one only looked at the power on the surface, the celestial court of the 33 layers could be compared to Mystical Mountain. However, Mystical Mountain had too many powerful experts, and the celestial court could not be compared to it. Spirited Mountain was vast and boundless. Countless great divine arts practitioners of Buddhism were cultivating in seclusion in Spirited Mountain. However, after countless years, very few people had seen these great divine arts practitioners. On the northern peak of Mystical Mountain, a sea of clouds rose, and mist filled the air. A figure sat cross-legged on the peak, and under the cover of the clouds and mist, no one could see what he looked like. No Buddhist light shone, and no Buddhist chants could be heard. This figure was like a rock, unmoving and unmoving. It was as if he had been sitting there for countless years. No matter how the world changed, it could not cause any ripples in his heart. Brother, are you really not willing to help me? Princess Ironfan's hair was messy, and her expression was crazed. She roared in a low voice and looked at this figure with great sorrow. Unfortunately, this figure did not speak or move at all. No matter how Princess Ironfan begged him, he did not respond at all from beginning to end. Sun Wukong, Old Bull is your sworn brother. Are you really so heartless as to let him be killed by Yi Xian? Princess Ironfan sorrowfully rebuked, and her eyes were extremely red. Sigh! Suddenly, a soft sigh came from the top of the mountain. The figure slowly stood up, and a calm voice came from the sea of clouds. The disputes of the world have nothing to do with me. You should return to where you came from. A hoarse voice came from the sea of clouds. His voice was very calm, and did not stir up any waves. Sun Wukong, are you really so heartless after becoming a Buddha? Princess Ironfan gritted her teeth as tears rolled down her cheeks. Become a Buddha? In the sea of clouds, a dot of Buddhist light bloomed in the clouds. The figure was walking out slowly, and his appearance was also revealed. Sun Wukong. Monkey King, Great Sage equal to heaven, Fighting Immortal Buddha. These were all his titles. However, Sun Wukong was wearing a Buddhist kasaya at this moment. His eyes were dim and his golden hair was withered. He was like an old monkey, no longer having the arrogant and unruly aura he had in the past. You, how did you become like this? Princess Ironfan murmured in a daze. She could not believe her eyes. How did the arrogant great sage equal to heaven, who dared to turn the sky upside down, become an old monkey? He no longer had that unruly aura. Unfortunately, Sun Wukong did not answer her question. Instead, he looked calmly at Princess Iron Fan and said, "My cultivation has been destroyed, and I no longer have the magical powers of the past. How do you want me to help you?" Why? How? How is this possible? Looking at the decadent aura around Sun Wukong, Princess Iron Fan could completely feel that he did not have any cultivation. This was simply unimaginable to her. She did not know what had happened to Sun Wukong after endless time. "Go back to where you came from," Sun Wukong said calmly. He returned to the clouds and sat down cross-legged. Princess Iron Fan stared at his back in a daze. Her eyes were filled with bitterness. "Even you can't help me. Even if I go to the Buddhas of Spirited Mountain, who would dare to avenge my husband?" Princess Iron Fan bit her lips and said, "Brother Ox, this tribulation is destined by the heavens. From now on, you should cultivate in peace. Don't go looking for Yi Xian again. Only then can you protect your own life." Sun Wukong said hoarsely, and did not say another word. "Ha! Smelly monkey. I didn't expect you to end up with your cultivation lost. What right do you have to teach me a lesson?" Her last hope had been shattered. Princess Iron Fan's eyes were bloodshot. She directly rode on the auspicious cloud and left the place. This also allowed the north peak of Spirited Mountain to return to peace. The great sage equal to heaven has ended up like this. You are really lamentable. Even if you are now a sage to be, so what? In the eyes of a saint, you are just an ant. Suddenly, a contemptuous voice came from the sea of clouds. This voice came from Sun Wukong's body, but he did not waver at all. It was as if he had long been used to the existence of this voice. The night was like water dotted with stars. A waning moon hung in the sky. The bright moonlight poured down, reflecting the boundless land. Under the moonlight, Yi Xian was strolling in the sky. He was returning to Little Rock Village. He did not chase after Princess Iron Fan, because he did not want to appear in front of the Buddhas of Spirited Mountain. Yi Xian did not care about Princess Iron Fan. He only wanted to step into the ranks of sage to be, before the 30,000-year time limit was up. A golden hair appeared in Yi Xian's hand. It was letting Yi Xian feel the power contained in it. This golden hair was the item that the Bull Demon King did not have time to use. Fighting Immortal Buddha? Yi Xian muttered to himself. A ray of immortal light flashed across his eyes. He did not need to guess at all. Just by feeling the power, he had already come to a conclusion. The power of sage to be? He has stepped into the ranks of sage to be. Yi Xian muttered to himself. The golden hair could help the Bull Demon King block his attack. Other than sage to be, there was no other possibility. All of a sudden, Yi Xian looked at Spirited Mountain in the west. It was as if he saw a pair of lonely eyes staring at him. This made him squint his eyes. A wisp of unfathomable light flashed across his eyes. "It's getting more and more interesting." Yi Xian retracted his gaze and smiled. No one knew what he was thinking, let alone the meaning of his words. Sun Wukong? Sage to be? Perhaps some people would ask why Sun Wukong was a sage to be. In fact, the reason was very simple. There was no shortage of amazing people in this world. Some people could cultivate for thousands of years, but could only stop at the Daluo Jingxian. There were also immortals who had lived for countless years, who could not even step into the Daluo Jingxian. And there was always a small group of people who were extremely talented. They had great wisdom and perseverance. They could step into the ranks of sage to be in just 1,000,000 years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. There was no doubt that Yi Xian and Sun Wukong were such people. Chapter 635. Yi Xian. Ever since he cultivated the immortal scripture, he had gone through many trials and tribulations. In less than 20,000 years, he was already at the peak of the grand heavenly realm, and was only a step away from stepping into the quasi-saint realm. This was already a legend. However, one should not forget that Yi Xian was not unique. He could reach the peak of the grand heavenly realm in 20,000 years. Sun Wukong naturally had his own opportunities, and could become a quasi-saint in a few 100,000 years, or even 1,000,000 years. A person's cultivation speed did not depend on time. If it did, it would depend on who lived longer. there would not be so many grievances in the three realms. Little Rock Village. Everything was quiet, and the world was silent. 7 days had passed since Yi Xian chased after the Bull Demon King and his wife. Little Rock Village was exceptionally quiet today, and not a single sound could be heard under the cover of the moonlight. The boundless sky was so close yet so far. When Yi Xian appeared in the sky above Little Rock Village, he frowned slightly, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. The smell of blood. The smell of blood in the air was extremely strong. This immediately made Yi Xian feel that something was wrong with Little Rock Village, and made him squint his eyes to examine the entire village in the void. Boom! The void was trapped and light and shadow were like shuttles. Yi Xian took a step forward, and instantly appeared in the village. An extremely tragic scene appeared before his eyes. Dead silence, austere, gloomy and vicious aura. The mottled dirt path was dyed red with blood. A large number of villagers' corpses collapsed on the ground. Every villager's heart was pierced, and their dilated pupils were blooming with grievances. Such a scene made Yi Xian's breath stop. He clenched his fists slightly, and a bloody light flashed across his eyes. However, he was trying his best to control his violent emotions as he strolled toward the home of the grandfather and grandson duo. Thud, thud, thud. Yi Xian strolled through the village. With every inch of land he passed, he could see the corpses of the villagers lying on the ground. The tragic scene was simply too horrible to look at. Zhang Qinghe's family of 3 died tragically on the spot. His corpse was chopped into 2, and his eyes were filled with terror and despair. Li Dazhuang and his daughter's hearts were pierced through, and their bodies were soaked in dried blood. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, Yi Xian walked slower and slower. He took in the tragic scene one by one, but his eyes became more and more focused. A dark and gloomy aura circulated around him. Half a cup of tea's time passed. Yi Xian finally arrived at the grandfather and grandson's residence. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian finally stopped in his tracks. His eyes narrowed slightly as he looked ahead. Uncle Zhua and the little girl were tied to 2 cross poles, and their mouths were sealed. When the grandfather and grandson duo saw Yi Xian appear, large amounts of tears flowed out of their eyes. They kept sobbing to Yi Xian. Ba. Suddenly, a shadow walked out from behind the grandfather and grandson duo. Zen Master Fa Hua was holding the earth element flag, and looking at Yi Xian with a ferocious expression. Benefactor, you didn't expect this poor monk to appear in front of you alive, right? Zen Master Fa Hua smiled ferociously. The earth element flag glowed faintly, and enveloped the grandfather and grandson duo. His gaze towards Yi Xian was filled with indescribable malice. Looking at the 5 elements flag in Zen Master Fa Hua's hand, Yi Xian's eyes were gloomy and calm. He instantly understood how this person managed to survive from his hands. Khanate chaotic earth element flag? Yi Xian muttered softly. Although he had never seen this item before, he had heard of the Khanate chaotic 5 elements flag. He did not expect Zen Master Fa Hua to have such a treasure. You are indeed a Tongtian Almighty. You can tell at a glance what this is in my hand. Zen Master Fa Hua nodded without any surprise. After all, even a great demon like the Bull Demon King was no match for Yi Xian. It was within his expectations that Yi Xian could recognize the earth element flag in his hand. You killed the entire village, but left the grandfather and grandson duo alive. Are you trying to use them to threaten me? Yi Xian said calmly. There was no trace of hostility around him. He only looked at Zen Master Fa Hua, as if he was looking at a dead man. Haha. Zen Master Fa Hua laughed ferociously and said coldly, this poor monk does not dare to threaten a Daluo Jingxian. However, you wiped out my entire Wuhua temple. If this poor monk does not make you pay the price, how can the hatred in my heart be appeased? Thud, thud, thud. Yi Xian slowly walked towards Zen Master Fa Hua. He didn't feel the slightest bit of fear, because the grandfather and grandson pair had fallen into his hands. Stop right there. Seeing Yi Xian walking towards him, Zen Master Fa Hua's expression changed slightly. He waved the 5-element flag in his hand, causing the grandfather and grandson duo's bodies to convulse. Their faces were filled with extreme pain. If you take another step forward, this poor monk will let the grandfather and grandson duo die in front of you. Zen Master Fa Hua roared ferociously. His expression was extremely vicious. You are really stupid. Do you think you can threaten me with the lives of two mortals? Yi Xian was still walking forward. He did not stop because of Zen Master Fa Hua's threat. The Daluo immortal light around him was faintly blooming, causing the world to gradually distort. Come. Suddenly, Yi Xian stretched out his palm, and the world changed abruptly. Zen Master Fa Hua was instantly sucked over by him. A jade-like palm slammed down on him. Even though he had the earth element flag, how could a mere golden immortal of the all-heaven resist Yi Xian? With just a thought, Yi Xian would kill him tragically. Bang! Zen Master Fa Hua's body turned illusory and disappeared into thin air. Haha! As expected, it's Daluo Jingxian. Unfortunately, this poor monk is prepared. You can't kill me. At this moment, Zen Master Fa Hua's voice was constantly reverberating in the void. His savage and vicious laughter was constantly heard. Yi Xian, this poor monk can't kill you, but so what? This poor monk has already consumed the 9 sunflower water. You'll see them die in front of you in an hour. This poor monk wants you to feel the pain of losing your family. Clearly, Zen Master Fa Hua was only relying on the earth element flag to leave behind a mirror image. He was not here at all. He wanted to take revenge on Yi Xian. That was his ultimate goal. Little ant, you're courting death. Rumble. Tong Tian moved the earth, and the sun and moon were inverted. Yi Xian's eyes were like two large stars rotating. He did not seem to have done anything. But when he stretched out his palm, a huge palm that blotted out the sky condensed in the sky and grabbed at the void 1,000,000 miles away. Ah! Bang! A shrill scream came from the void. The huge palm that blotted out the sky shattered the void and captured a figure. It instantly appeared in front of Yi Xian. No, impossible. I have the earth element flag. How can you find me? Zen Master Fa Hua's face was pale as he trembled and growled. Die. Bang! Yi Xian said coldly. He slammed his palm on Zen Master Fa Hua's head, causing him to explode into a cloud of blood mist. His primordial spirit let out a shrill cry as it was captured by Yi Xian. Chapter 636. Don't kill me. Everyone was afraid of death, and Zen Master Fa Hua was no exception. His physical body had been destroyed, and his primordial spirit was currently in Yi Xian's hands. As long as Yi Xian gently clenched his hand, his soul would scatter and he would die. 9 sunflower water? Boom! A ball of netherworld ghost fire burst out and enveloped Zen Master Fa Hua. The rolling netherworld raging flames burned his primordial spirit, causing him to let out a miserable cry. Ah! Spare me! Yi Xian's method was too cruel. The netherworld fire would destroy the primordial spirit, and the victim would suffer the pain of thousands of ants gnawing at his heart. Zen Master Fa Hua was begging for mercy, and his primordial spirit was gradually becoming illusory, as if it would be destroyed at any time. Die! Bang! Yi Xian said coldly and directly crushed Zen Master Fa Hua's primordial spirit in his hand. Then, he looked at the grandfather and granddaughter pair with a serious expression. Chi! A streak of immortal light flickered, and the ropes binding the grandfather and granddaughter pair immediately broke. However, at this moment, the little girl's eyes were unfocused, and black blood kept flowing out of the corner of her mouth. Uncle Zhuo's body was twitching, and black blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Buzz! The origin immortal light covered the grandfather and granddaughter pair, and a gentle force entered their bodies. This also caused the grandfather and granddaughter pair to slowly wake up, but a wisp of black qi lingered between their eyebrows. The 9 sunflower water was extremely poisonous. Even immortals would die if they came in contact with it. The grandfather and granddaughter pair were just mortals, and this was a situation where death was certain. Although Yi Xian's cultivation was powerful, the grandfather and granddaughter pair simply couldn't withstand his immortal power to expel the 9 sunflower water. It would only speed up their deaths. Cough, cough, cough. Uncle Zhuo opened his eyes as if he was on his deathbed. However, the deathly aura between his eyebrows was getting denser, and his eyes were starting to lose focus. Save little Zhuo Ma. Black blood kept flowing out of Uncle Zhuo's mouth, He clutched Yi Xian's arm tightly, and an extremely weak voice came from his mouth. At this moment, Yi Xian frowned as a wisp of a heavy expression flashed through his eyes. Because he was unable to save the two of them at all. They had consumed the 9-yin sunflower water for too long, and their internal organs had all been corroded. Even if he gave them the 9-cycle golden pill, it would be unable to save their lives. Puff! Black blood gushed out of Uncle Zhuo's mouth, mixed with his shattered organs. His eyes withered even more. It was clear that the 9-yin sunflower water had destroyed all of his bodily functions. It wouldn't be long before his soul returned to the underworld. Grandfather. On the other side, the little girl's entire body was bruised. Maggot-like black gas coiled around her weak body. Black blood continuously flowed out of her mouth, and her flesh gradually began to wither. Damn it! Yi Xian growled, and the immortal aura around him became extremely chaotic. Although he had a monstrous cultivation base, the 9-yin sunflower water was an item of extreme yin and evil. If it had been an immortal, it would have been fine. If Yi Xian had used his supreme cultivation base, he could have forced it out. However, both grandfather and granddaughter were mere mortals. They couldn't withstand his immortal power at all. Moreover, the 9-yin sunflower water had already destroyed all of their bodily functions. There was nothing he could do. Uncle Zhuo's body was shrouded in a deathly aura. He tightly gripped Yi Xian's arm and begged in a sorrowful voice. Little Yi, save little Zhuo Ma. Save Grandpa. The little girl's young face was in extreme pain. She kept groaning, and then fainted. While Yi Xian slowly breathed in and out, then gripped Uncle Zhuo's hand and gravely said, "The 9-yin sunflower water is an item of extreme yin and evil in the world. If you want to save little Zhuo Ma, I can only channel her 9-yin sunflower water into your body. But this old man's life is worthless. As long as little Zhuo Ma can live, it's fine. Do as you please." Uncle Zhuo grimly smiled, a hint of relief in his eyes. Okay. Yi Xian clenched his fists. He knew that there was no other way. One death was better than 2 deaths. Bzz. Yi Xian formed an immortal seal with both hands, and when he thrust out a finger, he cut open both grandfather and granddaughter's wrists. Under the cover of the origin immortal light, the two of them were connected by blood, and wisps of terrifying black energy were being transferred from the little girl's body to Uncle Zhuo. Connected by blood, grafting flowers onto a tree. This was a bloodline transfer technique, and it was also the only way to save the little girl. It was all because the 9-yin sunflower water was too vicious. Although Yi Xian had a terrifying cultivation, this was the only way to deal with the 9-yin sunflower water. Yi Xian was no stranger to the 9-yin sunflower water. When he first entered the celestial court to kill the longevity immortal venerable, he had used it. The longevity immortal venerable had only been contaminated by a little of it, and his soul had dispersed. From this, one could see how terrifying the 9-yin sunflower water was. However, Yi Xian had never imagined that Zen Master Fa Hua would have such an insidious item. If he had not been careless and allowed this person to escape, today's events would not have happened. Shao Yi, take good care of her, Uncle Zhuo said weakly. Uncle Zhuo weakly said. His flesh and blood were constantly being annihilated, and even his bones had turned into nothingness. His entire body had disappeared from Yi Xian's eyes. A fresh life disappeared before Yi Xian's eyes. Yi Xian was speechless. Uncle Zhuo's death was indirectly caused by him. If he had not come to Little Rock Village, perhaps Uncle Zhuo would not have died in front of him. Was it guilt or self-blame? Yi Xian's emotions were very complicated, and his eyes were somewhat lost. Although he had not spent much time with the grandfather and granddaughter, being with them gave him a sense of peace and tranquility. Yi Xian cherished this feeling very much. However, when he saw Uncle Zhuo die in front of him, his heart was fiercely shaken, as if a crack had opened in his frozen soul. Yi Xian had left behind too many corpses along the way, so he had the most direct experience of death. His heart had long been numb, and there was not the slightest ripple in his heart. The feeling of heartache, Yi Xian covered his heart and murmured, Big brother Yi." Suddenly, just as Yi Xian was deep in thought, a weak voice sounded. This woke Yi Xian from his thoughts. and he looked at the little girl. At this moment, the little girl's figure was thin, as if she was only skin and bones. Although the 9 sunflower water in her body had been channeled into Uncle Zhuo's body by Yi Xian and saved her life, the 9 sunflower water was like a maggot in a tarsal bone. It had already penetrated deep into her bone marrow, and it would not be long before it would erupt again. When that time came, the little girl would still die. A 12th grade virtuous golden lotus, Yi Xian said in a low voice, and a look of determination flashed across his eyes. If he wanted to completely expel the 9 sunflower water, he would need a 12th grade virtuous golden lotus. Big brother Yi, where did Grandpa go? The little girl got up with difficulty, biting her lips as she looked at Yi Xian. She seemed to have sensed something, and her eyes became misty, but she forced herself not to cry. Chapter 637. Yi Xian sighed. He stroked the little girl's yellow hair and said in a low voice, "Your grandfather has gone to a faraway place. I will bring you to him. Will you go with Brother Yi now?" "Brother Yi can really bring me to see my grandfather?" The little girl pursed her lips. She forced herself not to cry, but clear tears still rolled down her cheeks. "Brother Yi won't lie to you. Once I cure your illness, I will bring you to see your grandfather." Yi Xian raised his hand to wipe away the tears from the corner of the little girl's eyes. He pulled her small hand and walked towards the west. Under the illumination of the moonlight, the shadows of the two of them were elongated. Western Spirited Mountain, Great Thunderclap Temple. Thousands of auspicious qi. Buddha's light filled the sky, and the sound of chanting came from the void of the heavens. Duo Bao Rilai sat cross-legged on the golden lotus with the Buddha's light revolving behind him. He had a compassionate look on his face. "Buddha, please uphold justice for me, and give my husband and child justice." Princess Iron Fan knelt on the ground. She kept kowtowing to Duo Bao Rilai and sobbing. This made the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas frown. "Iron Fan, you said that Yi Xian killed your husband and child. This is simply a fallacy. You should know that Yi Xian is the celestial emperor of the 3 realms. Why would he appear in the Aparagodania continent?" Maitreya Buddha said softly. "What Iron Fan said is true. If the venerables and bodhisattvas don't believe me, you can go and see for yourself." Princess Iron Fan said hatefully. She looked at Duo Bao Rilai with a hopeful look. "Ba." Duo Bao Rilai put his palms together and chanted, "Iron Fan, if the one who killed your husband and child is really Yi Xian, with his temperament, how could he let you go?" "Buddha." Princess Iron Fan clenched her silver teeth, but couldn't say anything. She could see that Western Spirited Mountain didn't want to stand up for her dead husband and child. No matter how she begged, Duo Bao Rilai wouldn't make things difficult for Yi Xian. Clang, clang, clang. All of a sudden, 81 consecutive bell tolls reverberated throughout Spirit Mountain. This caused Duo Bao Rilai's expression to change slightly, and he abruptly looked towards the distant horizon. Rumble. The light of the origin Immortal shrouded the world, and the clouds for thousands of li surged. An imposing figure was currently walking toward Spirit Mountain, his aura capable of shaking mountains and rivers to the extreme. Ba. Duo Bao Rilai furrowed his brows and put his palms together, chanting the name of Buddha. "May I know why Yi Tiandi has come to Spirited Mountain?" Above the firmament in the void, Yi Xian strolled through the sky until he stood in the Tempest Temple. All the bodhisattvas and Buddhas focused their attention on him, wondering what this Yi Tiandi wanted to do at Spirited Mountain. However, what surprised the Buddhas of Spirited Mountain the most was that there was a little girl following behind Yi Xian. At this moment, she was hiding behind him with extreme fear, quietly looking at the bodhisattvas and Buddhas. Yi Xian. Yi Xian's arrival directly caused Princess Iron Fan to stand up abruptly. Her eyes instantly turned red as she looked at Yi Xian. An indescribable hatred filled her eyes. If looks could kill, Yi Xian would have died thousands of times. "Iron Fan, don't be rude. Why aren't you leaving?" Duo Bao Rilai furrowed his brows. When Yi Xian appeared, he had already believed Princess Iron Fan's words. However, he would never make things difficult for Yi Xian for Princess Iron Fan. He still knew the severity of the matter. Yi Xian was not surprised that Princess Iron Fan was at Spirited Mountain. After all, he had killed the Bull Demon King and Red Boy. The only place Princess Iron Fan could seek help from was Spirited Mountain. However, he did not bring the little girl to the Tempest Temple today to chase after Princess Iron Fan. Duo Bao, this emperor doesn't want to waste any more words. This emperor wants to borrow 3 virtuous lotus seeds from you. Yi Xian directly stated his intentions without any tactful words. Silence, silence, extreme silence. When Yi Xian finished speaking, the entire Tempest Temple was eerily silent. All the bodhisattvas and Buddhas looked at Yi Xian with horror in their eyes. There were a total of 4 lotus platforms in the world. They were divided into the 12th grade Golden Lotus of Virtue, the 12th grade Red Lotus of Fire, the 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction, and the 12th grade Green Lotus of Creation. The 12th grade Green Lotus of Creation was obtained by Ancestor Hong Jun and given to one of the 3 pure ones, Yuan Shi Tianzuan. The 12th grade Red Lotus of Fire was obtained by Ancestor Mingyi of the Blood Sea. It sat on the lotus platform, and nothing could break it. It burned karma and turned it into karma fire. It had both offensive and defensive capabilities and was extremely terrifying. The 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction was obtained by Luo Ho of the Demon Ancestor. It sat on the lotus platform, and nothing could break it. It could absorb the violent and destructive aura, and was filled with the resentment of all living beings. It was extremely terrifying. The 12th grade Golden Lotus of Virtue was obtained by Taoist Jie Yin, and later given to Duobao Rilai. It was the most important item of the Western sect, and the supreme treasure of the Tempest Temple of the Western sect. At this moment, Yi Xian was asking for 3 lotus seeds of virtue from Duobao Rilai. This was an extremely unreasonable request. It would also cause the quality of the 12th grade Golden Lotus of Virtue to drop. How could Duobao Rilai agree to Yi Xian's request? Ba. As expected, Duobao Rilai's face turned cold. He said in a low voice, Yi Tiandi, the 12th grade Golden Lotus of Virtue is the supreme treasure of the Spirited Mountain. Although it's only 3 lotus seeds of virtue, I can't agree to your request. You're wrong. I'm not asking you. I'm ordering you. Today, you have to borrow it even if you don't want to. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. His voice echoed in the Tempest Temple. The power of the Celestial Emperor was slowly being released. This also made Duobao Rilai's face turn gloomy. A great Sun Buddha's light bloomed behind him. Yi Tiandi, the Spirited Mountain, and the Celestial Court will mind our own business. I hope you can think twice before you act, Duobao Rilai said solemnly. Duobao Rilai spoke in a heavy tone. A cold light flashed through his eyes as he opened and closed them. His gaze towards Yi Xian also became extremely unfriendly. If it was somewhere else, Duobao Rilai could give in to Yi Xian. After all, Yi Xian's combat strength was heaven-defying. The 33rd Celestial Court was even more powerful than before. Duobao Rilai couldn't afford to offend him. But now, Yi Xian was bullying him. If he still lowered his head to Yi Xian, wouldn't he, the Western Buddha, become a joke in the 3 realms? The most important problem was that the grade 12 virtuous Golden Lotus was a Western treasure. If he really gave Yi Xian 3 virtuous lotus seeds, flaws would appear in the grade 12 virtuous Golden Lotus, and its quality would drop. If the 2 Western sages were to blame him, Duobao Rilai couldn't bear the responsibility. Brother Yi, let's go. The little girl quietly grabbed Yi Xian's sleeve. Her weak voice sounded in Yi Xian's ears. Clearly, the little girl's young heart had already been shocked to the extreme when she saw the legendary figures of the Western Buddhas. From the beginning to the end, the little girl had been quietly following Yi Xian. She didn't know who Yi Xian was. She only knew that this brother Yi of hers was very capable and had promised to help her find her grandfather. However, when Yi Xian brought her to Spirited Mountain today, she saw the Buddhas of Spirited Mountain. She also saw the legendary Buddha being polite to Yi Xian. The little girl knew that this brother Yi of hers had a great background. Chapter 638. The little girl's voice was tender and trembling. She was tugging at the corner of Yi Xian's clothes from behind. When this scene fell into the eyes of all the Buddhas, everyone looked at the little girl. Ba. Duo Bao Rilai chanted the name of Buddha. With just a glance, he could see that the little girl's vitality had been cut off. Clearly, Yi Xian wanted the lotus seed of virtue to revive the little girl's vitality. Yi Tiandi, please leave. Duo Bao Rilai put his palms together and directly ordered him to leave. Do you think I will leave if I don't get what I want? Thump, thump, thump. Yi Xian was strolling forward. The surrounding void rumbled and exploded. A wisp of dark fog quietly surrounded Yi Xian. His malicious eyes stared at all the Buddhas on Spirited Mountain. This also made the atmosphere of the entire Great Thunderclap Temple extremely heavy. Yi Xian, could it be that you want to fight with me? Duo Bao Rilai scolded coldly. He put his palms together, and the image of an angry Vajra appeared. With just you, Yi Xian smiled sinisterly. He looked at Duo Bao Rilai with contempt and said, if you have lived long enough, I don't mind sending you on your way. Arrogant. Duo Bao Rilai roared. He was the Western Buddha, and in existence at the peak of the grand heavenly realm. In the face of Yi Xian's contempt and humiliation, if he continued to endure it, he was afraid that he would become the joke of the three realms. Let this poor monk see just how capable you, heavenly emperor ye are. Rumble. The great Sun Buddha's light rumbled and rotated. The golden Buddha's palm was vast and boundless. When Duo Bao Rilai was enraged, he directly displayed his extremely terrifying cultivation. The pair of Buddha's palms covered the sky and earth, and directly fell on Yi Xian. Old man Duo Bao, you're courting death. You can't blame me for this. Yi Xian smiled sinisterly. When he took a step forward, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The entire Great Thunderclap Temple shook violently, and the boundless void turned into a vacuum. Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Duo Bao Rilai and slammed his palm toward his head. How dare you? Duo Bao Rilai growled coldly as his palms collided with Yi Xian's. Bang! Yi Xian's grayish-white hair fluttered violently in the light of the Buddha and the celestial light. Both of their palms collided, and an immeasurably terrifying power bloomed with the two of them at the center. The terrifying celestial light completely covered the two of them, and even Yi Xian's grayish-white hair fluttered violently in the light of the celestial light. Yi Xian, you brat! Duo Bao, you old dog! Their palms collided as if they were stuck together. The terrifying celestial light bloomed from their bodies, and for a moment, the two of them were in a stalemate. However, the entire Great Thunderclap Temple was shaking violently, and the protective formation of the Great Thunderclap Temple was crumbling inch by inch. Stop! Stop! If this continues, the Great Thunderclap Temple will be destroyed. A Buddha roared with shock because the might they erupted with was too terrifying. They were two existences at the peak of the golden immortal realm, and if they were to really fight, then half of Mount Numinous would definitely fall into their hands. Yi Xian, this poor monk has tolerated you for many years. Do you really think this poor monk is afraid of you? Duo Bao Rilai roared ferociously. The Buddha power in his body was like a vast ocean that kept pouring into his palms. He was madly clashing with Yi Xian's palms. Bang! 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 Yi Xian's grayish-white hair fluttered wildly, and the grand heavenly immortal light exploded in the void. His jade-like palms seemed young and tender, but an extremely terrifying power was pressing towards Duo Bao Rilai. Let's see how capable you are, Yi Xian growled coldly, and a vicious light flashed across his eyes. Rumble! Their palms were stuck together, and for a moment, they were evenly matched. However, with the two of them as the center, the void in all directions rumbled and shook. The Great Thunderclap Temple, that had not fallen since ancient times, was shaking violently, as if it would collapse at any time. Yi Xian had seen several peak grand heavenly realm experts, but whether it was the immortal elder of the South Pole, the demonic rock Kong Xian, or even the ghost emperor Shen Tu of the underworld, they were definitely inferior to Duo Bao Rilai. Yi Xian, you are only SOSO. Rumble! Duo Bao Rilai violently unleashed his power. His Buddha palms were emitting extreme golden light as they pressed down on Yi Xian. His feet were also moving forward with great force, constantly pushing Yi Xian back, and directly causing Yi Xian to show signs of defeat. Buddha's benevolence is boundless. Today he is enraged. Yi Xian will definitely suffer a great calamity. Mara Kasyapa, a Buddhist Banti, said with a smile. Amitabha, Yi Xian may be the celestial emperor, but how can his cultivation compare to our Buddha? A bodhisattva smiled faintly and nodded in agreement. Forget it. Yi Xian is too arrogant and unreasonable. Even if he married the Empyrean fairy, and has 2 saints behind him, he should never have behaved so atrociously in our spirited mountain. That's right. Today, our Buddha will teach him a lesson, and let him know that there is always someone better out there. All kinds of discussions could be heard. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were watching with smiles. It was obvious that Duobao Rulai was displaying his supreme Buddha's might at this moment, and Yi Xian's defeat was obvious. This also made them look at Yi Xian with a sneer. Brother Yi Xian, stop fighting. In the great Thunderclap Temple, a little girl with tears in her eyes was crying to Yi Xian. Yi Xian, you little brat. Today I will let you know how powerful this poor monk is. Duobao Rulai had the upper hand, and the corners of his mouth curved into a sinister smile. His Buddha palms were ever-changing, and the Buddha's light around him was as blazing as the sun. With unimaginable power, he pressed down on Yi Xian. Ha! Suddenly, Yi Xian's retreating footsteps stopped. The corners of his mouth curled into a strange smile. When he opened and closed his eyes, he looked at Duobao Rulai with a gaze of contempt. Duobao Rulai was slightly stunned, and an extremely bad feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. This also made him perform the Buddhist exorcism grand art. His Buddha palms suddenly expanded, and with boundless power pressed down on Yi Xian. Old man Duobao, is this all you have? Suddenly, Yi Xian's calm voice sounded. Under the shocked gazes of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Yi Xian actually retracted his palms and opened the door in front of his chest, allowing Duobao Rulai to hit his chest. Bang! The void exploded, and the Buddha's light blazed. Duobao Rulai's palms hit Yi Xian's chest, and the endless Buddha's light also drowned the two. When this scene appeared in front of the little girl's eyes, she immediately cried out and called out Yi Xian's name. Is he crazy? Crazy, he must be crazy. How can he withstand a Buddha's attack? All the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas whispered in horror, and they couldn't believe their eyes. One must know that Duobao Rulai was at the peak of the grand heavenly realm, and he even cultivated the Buddhist secret technique of the 10 feet 8 golden body. Whether it was his physical body or cultivation, he was known as the peak of the 3 realms. At this moment, Yi Xian was simply courting death by taking Duobao Rulai's attack head-on. Unfortunately, before the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas could recover from their shock, the immortal Buddha's light slowly dissipated between the two. The next scene that appeared in front of everyone's eyes completely stunned them. Chapter 639. Duobao Rulai's palms were still on Yi Xian's chest, but at this moment, he was looking at Yi Xian with a pale face. His palms were trembling to the extreme. Yi Xian didn't release any immortal light around him. He looked at Duobao Rulai strangely and calmly, with an evil smile on his face. You want to hurt me with your little cultivation? Yi Xian said with a smile. However, his smile was too terrifying in Duobao Rulai's eyes. It made Duobao Rulai's arms tremble as he stared at Yi Xian, as though he had encountered some great horror. No. Impossible. Why are you unharmed? Duobao Rulai asked in horror. He kept retreating as he looked at Yi Xian with an extremely solemn and horrified expression. Duobao Rulai couldn't be blamed for his reaction. His attack just now contained 80% of his cultivation. Even a peak grand heavenly immortal would suffer an unimaginable injury from his attack. However, Yi Xian was unscathed. How could he not be terrified? Unfortunately, Duobao Rulai didn't know that when Yi Xian cultivated to the peak of the grand heavenly immortal realm, no one in the same realm could be his opponent. No matter his cultivation or body, no one in the peak of the grand heavenly immortal realm could hurt him. Only a quasi-saint could pose a threat to him. Duobao Rulai, either you hand over the virtuous lotus seed or you die here. Don't say that this emperor didn't give you a choice. Rumble. The great Lane temple shook violently. A wisp of mist surrounded Yi Xian as he strode toward Duobao Rulai. A murderous aura filled the air. Yi Xian, you're delusional. Duobao Rulai roared. Die. Yi Xian didn't waste any more words. nor did he hold back in the slightest. He took a step forward, and suddenly appeared in front of Duo Baorilai. A pair of enormous palms that could support the heavens and the earth condensed, bringing with them a terrifying might that could annihilate everything as they pressed down towards Duo Baorilai. Buddhist kingdom in a palm, Duo Baorilai let out a loud roar, and a pair of Buddha palms destroyed the void. The sound of chanting filled the sky as he attacked Yixian. Bang! Ah! Mountains and rivers were destroyed, and time and space were distorted. When Yixian no longer held back, an extremely terrifying thing happened. Duo Baorilai couldn't withstand Yixian's attack at all. His Buddha palms crumbled inch by inch and exploded into 2 balls of bloody foam. He let out a shrill scream. Dong! Duo Baorilai's body was sent flying through the Great Lane Temple. Mountains were smashed into dust by his body. Golden Buddha blood spurted out of his mouth uncontrollably. Come! Yixian's emotionless voice came from all directions. A pair of illusory giant palms appeared and grabbed at Duo Baorilai. Buzz! The heavens and earth were destroyed, and the void was in turmoil. This palm grabbed the mountains and rivers, shattered the void, and directly imprisoned Duo Baorilai in his hand. Yixian also quietly appeared in front of Duo Baorilai. Rumble! Yixian's fist destroyed mountains and rivers, mercilessly and cruelly smashing towards Duo Baorilai. This made Duo Baorilai roar in anger. He chanted the Buddhist scripture, and 8 feet of golden light rose around him, hoping to resist Yixian's destructive attack. Crack! The 8 feet of golden light shattered inch by inch, and a mouthful of Buddha blood spurted out. Yixian's fist penetrated Duo Baorilai's chest, and Duo Baorilai roared in pain. However, he couldn't resist Yixian's killing technique. Blood. Golden blood. It was bleak and magnificent. The golden Buddha blood soaked Duo Baorilai, and the blazing Buddha light dissipated without a trace. His body cracked like a spider web. Duo Baorilai didn't even have the strength to resist Yixian, who was invincible. No. Impossible. Impossible. You. How can you be so strong? In the sky, Duo Baorilai's face was pale. The bloody hole in his chest was extremely terrifying, and a large amount of blood foam flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His battered body fell to the ground. However, his eyes were dull, and he was murmuring in a trembling voice. Obviously, he couldn't understand why Yixian, who was in the same realm as him, didn't even have the strength to resist. Instead, he suffered such a great calamity. Rumble! High in the sky, thousands of thunderbolts gathered in the clouds, an endless wind and clouds surged. Yixian stood in the sky, and a pair of sword fingers cut through the sky. Thousands of thunderbolts moved along with Yixian's sword fingers. Kill! Murderous aura and murderous intent roared. As Yixian's sword fingers fell, thousands of thunderbolts whizzed down with the power to destroy heaven and earth and struck Duo Baorilai. Crack! The sea of thunder churned, and the divine thunder destroyed the world. Blue thunderbolts struck Duo Baorilai's body, causing his flesh to crack. Blood kept spurting out of his mouth, and he fell to the ground of Spirited Mountain. Rumble! Rumble! Mountains collapsed one after another. Duo Baorilai smashed through countless mountains, and his entire body was smashed into the huge belly of the mountain. A terrifying human-shaped hole appeared. Buddha! The bodhisattvas and Buddha's expressions changed drastically, and they cried out in horror. Buzz! The void shook and ripples spread. Yixian stepped out and stood in the sky above Spirited Mountain. He didn't do anything, but a ferocious smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. As he stretched out his palm, the space between heaven and earth suddenly became extremely distorted. Come! Bang! The mountain exploded and turned into dust. Duo Baorilai's battered body appeared. The Buddhist light around him had disappeared without a trace, and he was directly sucked in by Yixian. Buddha! The bodhisattvas and Buddhas came over on clouds and instantly surrounded Yixian. However, they looked at Yixian with extreme fear in their eyes. They couldn't believe their eyes. Duo Baorilai was defeated? Duo Baorilai was defeated by Yixian? Everyone on Spirited Mountain felt like they were in a dream. They couldn't believe this fact. They knew that Yixian was very strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the Celestial Emperor. However, they didn't expect Yixian to be so strong that even Duo Baorilai was no match for him. If they remembered correctly, Yi Xian had just stepped into the zenith heavenly realm 10,000 years ago. However, only 10,000 years had passed, and Yi Xian had cultivated to the peak of the zenith heavenly realm. They didn't dare to imagine such a thing. Crack! Just as the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Spirit Mountain were silent in fear, a strange sound rang out. This caused the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas to look at Yi Xian. However, the next scene caused them to tremble and be speechless. Yi Xian's 5 fingers knocked on the top of Duobao Rilai's head. A cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, as he stared coldly at the immortals and Buddhas present. I'm very reasonable. As long as you give me the 12th grade Golden Lotus of Merit, I'll spare Duobao Rilai's life. What do you think? Yi Xian said with a smile. However, his smile was too cold in the eyes of these Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. This made them shiver unconsciously and take 3 steps back. Chapter 640. Amitabha. A hoarse Buddhist chant came from the great thunderclap temple, and a green light appeared in the void. A green lamp swayed slightly, and an old monk walked out of the void. Greetings, Dipankara Buddha. The Bodhisattvas and Buddhas put their palms together and chanted. Their originally trembling hearts calmed down, because of Dipankara Buddha's appearance. Dipankara? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and looked at Dipankara Buddha. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Finally, someone who can make the decision has appeared. Yi Xian's fingers were on Duobao Rilai's head as he smiled at Dipankara. He could tell at a glance that Dipankara Buddha was a peak grand immortal, but his aura was obscure. The green lamp on his shoulder, in particular, gave him a faint sense of threat. Little friend Yi, you are the celestial emperor of the 3 realms. Our spirit mountain and the celestial court have always advanced and retreated together. But today, you have injured Duobao. This is also hurting the harmony between Spirit Mountain and the Celestial Court. Why don't you let Duobao go? This old monk is willing to sit down and talk with the Celestial Emperor. What do you think? Dipankara Buddha had an extremely high status in Spirit Mountain. When he spoke, everyone fell silent. Everyone on Spirit Mountain also looked at Yi Xian. Let Duobao go. Haha. Yi Xian laughed wildly, but his smile was extremely savage. The palm that was on Duobao Rilai's head suddenly trembled. An extremely terrifying origin immortal light descended, suppressing Duobao Rilai until he coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. It was as if he would be killed on the spot in the next moment. Stop talking nonsense with this emperor. Hand over the 12th grade virtuous Golden Lotus, and this emperor will let go of Duobao's dog life. Yi Xian said sinisterly. He didn't put the ancient Buddha Dipankara in his eyes at all. Yi Xian, even if you kill me, you won't be able to walk out of Spirit Mountain. At this moment, Duobao Rilai growled in a trembling voice. There was great humiliation in his eyes. He, the dignified Buddha of the Western Paradise, was being threatened with his life. Moreover, he was powerless to resist. No matter what the outcome was today, his reputation in the 3 realms had been completely destroyed. While he hated Yi Xian, Duobao Rilai's mind trembled. He was terrified of Yi Xian. Yi Xian had only been cultivating for a short period of time. How could his cultivation be so terrifying? If he was given more time, wouldn't Yi Xian step into the quasi-sage stage? Thinking of this result, Duobao Rilai's heart was filled with fear. His eyes constantly changed, and he truly hated and feared Yi Xian. Yi Xian, you just asked for 3 virtuous lotus seeds from Spirit Mountain. Now you want the grade 12 virtuous Golden Lotus? Have you lost your mind? Malka Kasayapa growled in anger. Little friend Yi, I can give you the 3 virtuous lotus seeds. However, the grade 12 virtuous Golden Lotus is the most precious treasure of Spirit Mountain. We can't give it to you. Dipankara Buddha frowned and chanted Buddha's name in a low voice. Now this emperor has changed his mind. If you don't have the grade 12 virtuous Golden Lotus, then you can collect Duobao's corpse, Yi Xian said gloomily. It was not strange that Yi Xian suddenly changed his mind. Whether it was the 3 virtuous lotus seeds, or the grade 12 virtuous Golden Lotus, he had completely offended Spirit Mountain today. In this case, he might as well offend them completely, and ask for the grade 12 virtuous Golden Lotus. Amitabha. Little friend, do you think there's no one in Spirit Mountain? As the saying goes, even Buddhas have anger. Yi Xian's arrogance made Dipankara Buddha's face turn cold. The green lamp on his shoulder swayed slightly, and a wisp of green light suddenly enveloped the entire Spirit Mountain. You want to fight? Yi Xian sinisterly smiled as his 5 fingers released a terrifying force that directly affected Duobao Rilai's head. It caused Duobao Rilai's skull to emit a crisp sound as a muffled groan came from his mouth. Duobao Rilai was bleeding from his 7 orifices. His broken body was spurting blood. His primordial spirit was faintly discernible between his eyebrows. Obviously, Yi Xian had not only exerted physical strength on him, but also suppressed his primordial spirit. He could destroy his primordial spirit at any time. Stop. Dipankara Buddha's expression changed drastically. He shouted angrily, I'll give you the grade 12 virtuous golden lotus. Let Duobao go. Rumble. Thousands of strands of auspicious qi and multicolored light shone resplendently. A 12th grade golden lotus platform appeared, and the golden light of virtue filled the surroundings. A peaceful and imposing aura bloomed from the 12th grade golden lotus of virtue, and directly descended towards Yi Xian. Ancient Buddha, no. Such a scene made the bodhisattvas and Buddha's expressions change drastically. They even cried out in alarm. Old monk, you're smart. Yi Xian smiled in satisfaction. As he waved his hand, he directly took the 12th grade virtuous golden lotus into his hand. However, it was also at this moment that the 12th grade virtuous golden lotus suddenly released a Buddhist light, and the terrifying virtuous golden light enveloped Yi Xian. Amitabha. The ancient Buddha Dipankara chanted Buddha's name in a low voice. His pair of Buddha palms transformed into a giant hand that covered the sky, directly saving Duobao Rilai from Yi Xian's hands. He even put his palms together and chanted scriptures in a low voice. The 12th grade virtuous golden lotus bloomed with boundless power, and directly descended onto Yi Xian's head, as if it was carrying out a terrifying suppression on him. Yi Xian, your time has come. Duobao Rilai had just escaped danger. He was covered in blood and panting heavily beside Dipankara Buddha. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely vicious gaze. Arg! Yi Xian roared in a low voice, as the immortal light around his body was annihilated inch by inch. The 12th grade virtuous golden lotus buzzed and rotated above his head. Strands of golden light seemed to want to refine him into ashes. Amitabha. There are 4 major lotus platforms in the world. The grade 12 virtuous golden lotus is a holy and virtuous object. It is not something that can be owned by evil spirits. Little friend Yi, you have a deep evil aura. I don't know how many vengeful souls you have borne. The virtuous golden lotus is your natural nemesis. Today, I can only subdue you, Dipankara Buddha said in a hoarse voice. The green lamp on his shoulder bloomed with light, and the sound of chanting scriptures came from his mouth. It turned into Buddhist scriptures that filled the sky and fell on Yi Xian. Buddha is merciful. At this moment, Yi Xian was being suppressed by the virtuous golden lotus. The little girl cried out in alarm. Her eyes were misty as she kept pleading with Dipankara Buddha. Little thing, come over here. Suddenly Princess Iron Fan, who had been silent all this time, appeared beside the little girl and lifted her up. A cruel and vicious look flashed across Princess Iron Fan's eyes. At this moment, all the Buddhas in the sky were silent. They naturally saw Princess Iron Fan's behavior, but everyone ignored this scene. After all, this little girl came together with Yi Xian. Bang! Suddenly, a loud explosion was heard, causing the entire spirit mountain to tremble violently. The grade 12 virtuous golden lotus that was suppressing Yi Xian's head was sent flying. The killing immortal light of Tongtian was blooming around Yi Xian. Chapter 641. Die! A fist radiance broke through the barriers of time and space, and enlarged in Dipankara's eyes. Yi Xian's savage and cold expression was reflected in Dipankara's eyes. How is this possible? Dipankara was no longer calm. His face was filled with panic and helplessness, but he reacted quickly. The lamp on his shoulder shone brightly, turning into a ring of azure Buddhist light that enveloped his body. He wanted to block Yi Xian's devastating blow. Clang! It was as if a divine mountain had fallen to the ground, as if the heavenly river had reversed. A loud rumble was heard, and the glazed green lamp immediately cracked. Blood flowed from the corner of Dipankara Buddha's mouth, as he was sent flying thousands of kilometers away. Dipankara, you're courting death. Yi Xian let out a low roar. When he took a step forward, the light of slaughter lingered in all directions. His fists were like stars in the sky, as they violently smashed towards the ancient Buddha Dipankara. Bang! 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 Yi Xian's cultivation was too terrifying, and his origin immortal body was extremely powerful. How could Dipankara be his match? The glazed lamp was in tatters, and its azure Buddhist light was gradually fading. The most frightening thing was that Yi Xian's every punch caused Dipankara's body to crack and Buddhist blood to seep out of his mouth. Stop! Suddenly, Duo Bao Rilai roared as he sent a palm strike at Yi Xian. However, he was already seriously injured, so this strike had no effect on Yi Xian. Bang! With a flip of his palm, he could create clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Yi Xian's palm struck out and directly sent Duo Bao Rilai flying. His body was even severely damaged as he fiercely smashed into the spirit mountain. Get over here! Yi Xian roared ferociously. When he stretched out his palm, it directly grabbed the neck of the ancient Buddha Dipankara, causing the old monk to let out a muffled groan. A trace of despair flashed through his eyes. Old man, how dare you plot against me? Yi Xian stared coldly at Dipankara. His fingers were tightening, causing Dipankara's neck to twist irregularly. It was as if Yi Xian would break his neck in the next moment. Little friend Yi, I advise you to stop now. Otherwise you won't be able to leave Spirit Mountain, Dipankara said with difficulty. He did not seem to be begging for mercy, because he was in Yi Xian's hands. Yi Xian, if you kill Dipankara and anger the saint, you will also die on Spirit Mountain today. Duo Bao Rilai staggered over, blood flowing from his mouth. Yi Xian, look who this is? Hey, are you courting death? Yi Xian didn't panic in the slightest, as he watched the little girl fall into Princess Iron Fan's hands. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was even a trace of malice within them. This was because with his cultivation, he didn't need to wait for Princess Iron Fan to make a move. Amitba! Suddenly, a sorrowful Buddhist chant resounded between heaven and earth. A dot of Buddhist light grew in the distant horizon. Before Princess Iron Fan could react, the little girl in her hand suddenly disappeared. This also stunned Princess Iron Fan. Who is it? Princess Iron Fan roared angrily. A slender figure walked over from the sky. A Buddhist light illuminated the entire Spirit Mountain. When this person appeared in the sky above Spirit Mountain, the entire mountain fell silent. Fighting Immortal Buddha? When the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas saw who it was, they exclaimed in surprise. Duo Bao Rilai, in particular, looked at the person with a complicated expression. He became silent. Yi Daoyu, the 12th grade Golden Lotus of Merit is yours. Please show mercy, and don't take the Dipankara Buddha's life. He had golden hair and a benevolent face. A Buddhist light bloomed behind Sun Wukong. He spoke to Yi Xian calmly, without any hostility at all. A quasi-saint, Sun Wukong's appearance made Yi Xian squint his eyes. He constantly studied this legendary figure. With just a single glance, he could tell that he was already a quasi-saint, and he was definitely much more powerful than the myriad poison ancestor. Damned monkey, how dare you ruin my plans? Princess Iron Fan scolded. I'm saving your life. Sun Wukong helplessly shook his head, then looked at Yi Xian and said, Fellow Taoist Yi, this woman has some relationship with this poor monk in the past. Can you give this poor monk face and let her live? Give me a reason to spare her. Yi Xian squinted his eyes. You're only a step away from condensing a true spirit and becoming a quasi-saint. I can point you in the right direction, Sun Wukong said calmly. As soon as Sun Wukong finished speaking, Yi Xian's expression slightly changed. It took him a few breaths of time to recover his composure. He casually threw the ancient Buddha Dipankara to the ground, and didn't even look at Princess Iron Fan. Come with me, sir. Sun Wukong nodded. He did not glance at the bodhisattvas of the mountain the entire time. He strolled towards the northern peak of the mountain. This also made Yi Xian pull the girl into his arms and follow Sun Wukong. Buddha, you can't let Yi Xian take the golden lotus of merit away, a bodhisattva said anxiously. Shut up. Suddenly, Duo Bao Rilai bellowed furiously, immediately silencing the entire mountain. Today's matter must not be publicized. Duo Bao Rilai's face was gloomy. He helped the Dipankara Buddha up. They looked at each other and saw the heaviness in each other's eyes. Then, they returned to the Great Lane Temple hand in hand. Stupid monkey, look at what you've done. Princess Iron Fan scolded angrily. She turned into a stream of light and disappeared. The Great Lane Temple. Everything was silent. The void was silent. Duo Bao Rilai and the Dipankara Buddha sat opposite each other on the two golden lotus platforms. Their appearances were too miserable at the moment. The Buddhist light around them was disappearing and disappearing, proving that they had suffered extremely serious injuries. An extremely oppressive atmosphere was growing. He actually walked out of the northern peak of Spirited Mountain. After dozens of breaths, Duo Bao Rilai spoke in a heavy voice. If one listened carefully, they would find that there was a trace of tremor in his voice. Amitabha. The Dipankara Buddha shook his head bitterly and said, Yi Xian alone has already turned Spirited Mountain upside down. If Wukong really wants to release his inner demon, I'm afraid Spirited Mountain will suffer an unimaginable calamity. Back then, I told you that this monkey must be killed. But now Sai. Duo Bao Rilai wanted to say something but stopped. A look of horror flashed across his eyes. Everyone below the Saint Realm is an ant. Wukong understands this. Even if he is unwilling, as long as he doesn't enter the Saint Realm, he will still be the divine fighting Buddha. This has never changed. You can rest assured. The Dipankara Buddha sighed bitterly. I hope so. Duo Bao Rilai frowned, but a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. Whether it was Yi Xian or this monkey, they were both big problems in his heart. Chapter 642. The north peak of Spirited Mountain was desolate and empty. The endless sea of blue clouds was steaming. Wisps of five-colored flowing light surrounded the center of the sea of clouds, giving off a magnificent feeling. At the top of the north peak, the little girl fell into a deep sleep in Yi Xian's arms. Her small body was blooming with golden light. Wisps of extreme yin and extreme evil qi dissipated in the void, and her originally thin body gradually became plump. The 12th grade virtuous golden lotus is a heaven-opening spiritual treasure. It breeds creation and vitality. This child has already recovered after consuming a virtuous golden lotus seed. You don't have to worry. Sun Wukong sat cross-legged on the top of the mountain and spoke calmly to Yi Xian. Everyone says that Sun Wukong is a lawless and unruly person. But today, I see that you are kind and not arrogant. It seems that the rumors are not true. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Sun Wukong smiled. He pointed one finger at the sky and shook his head at Yi Xian. This world is like a chess game. All living things are chess pieces. You and I both exist in this world. Isn't the so-called lawlessness a joke? You're not Sun Wukong, Yi Xian said softly. As Yi Xian's words fell, Sun Wukong's calm face was slightly stunned. A complicated look flashed across his eyes. He looked at Yi Xian and said, If you say that I'm not Sun Wukong, then who am I? Have you heard of a saying? Yi Xian did not answer his question. Please enlighten me, Sun Wukong said softly. It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but hard to change one's nature. Although I've never seen Sun Wukong, I still have some understanding of him. Back then, when he destroyed the Lingxiao Palace, he would rather become a demon king in the lower realm than become an immortal or Buddha. Even in the face of the immortals and Buddhas, he never bowed. Although a person's character can be changed, the deep-rooted thing in his bones can never be changed. Tell me, are you really Sun Wukong? Yi Xian's voice grew calmer and calmer. However, his voice was extremely certain, because he believed in his own judgment. No matter how much a person changed, the things that were deeply rooted in their bones would never change. Take Yi Xian for example. He could treat the little girl in his arms very well, but he also felt very sorry for Uncle Zhu's passing. However, his heart remained cold and emotionless. To put it cruelly, if these two dared to obstruct his path forward, he would definitely use his butcher's knife to kill them on the spot. Yi Xian was able to see through himself very clearly. He naturally wouldn't believe that the dignified great sage, heaven's equal, a peerless figure who didn't put the immortals and Buddhas in his eyes, would be as kind and amiable as an old monk. Silence. Silence, extreme silence. Sun Wukong silently looked at Yi Xian. His body trembled slightly, and his breathing became somewhat disordered. However, the helplessness and self-deprecation in his eyes became more and more intense. You're not me. You don't understand what I've been through. And you don't know why I've become what I am today, Sun Wukong said in a low voice. His eyes were staring straight at Yi Xian. A fierce look flashed across his eyes. Yi Xian did not avoid Sun Wukong's gaze. He only smiled and said, "Although I don't know what you've been through, if you can't even be yourself, what's the difference between this and death?" Rumble. Like the morning bell and evening drum. Like the thunder from the ninth heaven. Yi Xian's voice kept exploding in Sun Wukong's mind. He was completely stunned and speechless. The Buddhist light around him was extremely chaotic. Kakik. Suddenly, an unbridled and wild laughter came from Sun Wukong's body. A wisp of demonic aura spread out from Sun Wukong's body. Deity, you're simply a joke. Even this kid understands this, but you still want to suppress me. You're simply stupid. Shut up. Sun Wukong's expression changed drastically. He chanted the Buddhist name loudly. An extremely terrifying Buddhist light rippled out, and a painful groan came from his body. Who is he? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. The heavenly emperor's Dharma eyes rumbled, as if he wanted to see who was inside Sun Wukong's body. Suddenly, a dazzling brilliance shone so brightly that Yi Xian could not open his eyes. However, he still saw a trace of the outline inside Sun Wukong's body. A monkey with golden hair and a ferocious appearance. Its body was emitting demonic light. It was roaring inside Sun Wukong's body. A pair of dazzling fangs flashed with a cold light. A pair of fierce eyes were emitting a bloodthirsty light. It had an unruly and lawless aura. It was looking at Yi Xian inside Sun Wukong's body. A golden chain wrapped around the devil monkey. No matter how much the devil monkey roared, it was unable to break free from the chain. However, an extremely demonic and devilish aura bloomed violently around its body, and its ferocious eyes were filled with a desire to battle the heavens and destroy the earth. Amipa. Sun Wukong put his palms together and chanted sutras in the void. This also made Yi Xian instantly look away. However, there was an extremely surprised look in his eyes. Did you see it? Sun Wukong's face was gloomy. He stared at Yi Xian. A ring of Buddhist light quietly covered the north peak of Spirit Mountain. A thick and oppressive aura was hanging down on Yi Xian. You want to fight me? Rumble. The light of the origin immortal exploded, causing space-time to distort. A wisp of chaotic mist swirled around Yi Xian's body, and the mark of a blood moon flashed on Yi Xian's forehead. A destructive energy erupted from his body. Sun Wukong withdrew his energy and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. The Buddhist light around him dissipated, and he became calm once more. However, he looked at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. Yi Xian withdrew his energy and became calm once more. The two of them sat cross-legged on the ground, but their gazes intertwined, causing the world to slightly distort. After some seconds, Sun Wukong spoke in a low voice. Do you know that if I wanted to kill you just now, your soul would have been obliterated? Although you're a quasi-saint, you can't kill me, Yi Xian calmly said. Sun Wukong slowly nodded and said, Correct. You walk the path of strength, and your origin immortal body is almost complete. It truly is rather difficult for me to kill you. Yi Xian was alarmed by Sun Wukong's words. He had never imagined that Sun Wukong would be able to tell that he cultivated the path of strength. It must be known that besides the Tongtian and Dao ancestor Hongjun, no one else had been able to tell that he cultivated the path of strength, but Sun Wukong had seen through it with a single glance. How could Yi Xian not be astonished? Are you very puzzled as to why I could tell that you cultivated the path of strength? Sun Wukong smiled faintly. His eyes flickered as he said, Before I became a quasi-saint, I cultivated the Dao affirmation method through strength. What? Yi Xian grimaced, his calm demeanor gone. Chapter 643. The 9 tribulations of the heavenly way are the most terrible tribulations in the world. They may be the heavenly punishment, or the great tribulation of the human heart. Only by passing the 9 tribulations of the heavenly way can one transcend the heavenly way, and become the saint of all beings. It's a pity that I almost died under the first tribulation. I had no choice but to switch to the 3-corpse slaying technique. Today, I saw that you are also using strength to prove your Tao, so I came out to meet you. Sun Wukong sighed softly. The 9 tribulations of the heavenly way. Hearing Goku's words, Yi Xian murmured. He suddenly looked up at the sky, and his eyes gradually became gloomy, as if he understood something at this moment. Yes, the way of proving through strength is different from the 3 corpses technique and the way of virtue. The way of proving through strength is about breaking all laws with one force, breaking through the shackles of the world and transcending the heavenly way. Only the strongest force is the way of eternity. Goku's voice trembled slightly, and his eyes shone with excitement. However, this kind of light quickly dissipated, and his whole person became silent. Unfortunately, I almost died under the first tribulation. If I didn't destroy the way of proving through strength, my soul would have been scattered between the world. Goku laughed at himself. Old Hongjun? Yi Xian clenched his fists, and his eyes were extremely gloomy. Today, after hearing Goku's explanation, he suddenly realized that the way of heart that Tao ancestor Hongjun taught him was simply to bewitch him into the way of proving through strength. Stupid, stupid, extremely stupid. Yi Xian's face was ferocious, and he was roaring furiously in his heart. He had never doubted Tao ancestor Hongjun's words, and always thought that Tao ancestor Hongjun was showing him the way to sage to be. However, after chatting with Sun Wukong today, Yi Xian suddenly realized that Tao ancestor Hongjun wasn't guiding him on the right path at all. Instead, he wanted to destroy his path of proving the Tao through strength. What was the way of proving through strength? Strength could destroy all techniques, and the heavens and the earth could be obliterated wherever one's heart desired. Trampling the heaven Tao beneath one's feet, and transcending the 3 dimensions to become a saint amongst saints, and become invincible in the myriad of worlds. This was the foundation of attaining the Tao with strength. As long as the heart is not extinguished, all living things will exist forever. As long as the true spirit is born, one can become a quasi-saint. All of this is simply a joke. Yi Xian's heart had never changed. He walked the path of proving his Tao through strength, and he only believed in strength. What did it have to do with the soul? Tao ancestor Hongjun's intentions were murderous. He was simply trying to bewitch Yi Xian and lead him off the path of using strength to attain the Tao. He was simply trying to destroy Yi Xian. Old man Hongjun. Yi Xian clenched his fists tightly as his eyes turned crimson red. A feeling of shame and indignation grew in the bottom of his heart. The extreme humiliation caused Yi Xian's face to swell to the extreme. He had been fooled by Tao ancestor Hongjun. And he had been fooled by Tao ancestor Hongjun for more than 10,000 years. In fact, Yi Xian could not be blamed for being bewitched by Tao ancestor Hongjun. If it were anyone else in Yi Xian's position, they would definitely believe Tao ancestor Hongjun without a doubt. Who was Tao ancestor Hongjun? He was as famous as the great god Pangu. He was the first saint since the creation of the world. He even used his body to complement the heaven Tao. He was the strongest person in the world, and even the 3 pure ones had to respect him as their teacher. Who would have thought that such a supreme figure would actually appear in person to deceive Yi Xian? If it were not for the conversation with Sun Wukong today, Yi Xian was very sure that he would still be immersed in Tao ancestor Hongjun's bewitchment, even after 300,000 years, or 3 million years, let alone the 30,000-year deadline he had set for himself. Only power was eternal, and the rest were illusions. This principle was very simple and easy to understand. Yi Xian had always understood it. However, the simpler the principle, the more complicated it was. Yi Xian's thoughts were too heavy, and because of Tao ancestor Hongjun's bewitchment, he had forgotten this most simple principle. It was only today that he woke up from Sun Wukong's words. However, he had already wasted 10,000 years. The humiliation that Tao ancestor Hong Jun had given him made Yi Xian want to kill his way to the 9 heavens and turn Tao ancestor Hong Jun into ashes. Hong Jun! Haha. Sun Wukong was stunned at first, then he looked up at the sky and said with a contemptuous smile, Hong Jun is the heaven Tao, and the heaven Tao is Hong Jun. Don't you understand this principle? As Sun Wukong's words fell, Yi Xian clenched his fists. His face was full of humiliation. Sun Wukong's words were like steel needles that kept stabbing into his heart. Not only did he feel an indescribable pain, but his heart was also filled with great shame and anger. Humiliation, a great humiliation. Yi Xian had never suffered such a great humiliation since he started cultivating. This was the greatest humiliation he had ever suffered in his life. However, he had to endure this humiliation, because he could not wash away this humiliation yet. Tell me, how can I become a sage to be? Suddenly Yi Xian's eyes darkened. He stared at Sun Wukong. A touch of tyrannical bloodlust streaked across his eyes, and his voice was extremely cold. Power, endless power. As long as you continue to accumulate your cultivation, when the quantitative change reaches a qualitative change, your primordial spirit will become an indestructible true spirit, and you will become a half-step to sage to be. Half-step to sage to be. Yi Xian frowned and looked at Sun Wukong in confusion. Sensing Yi Xian's puzzled gaze, Sun Wukong nodded slowly. There was a touch of excitement in his eyes as he continued. Do you know why I almost died under the first tribulation? Without waiting for Yi Xian to ask, Sun Wukong seemed to have sunk into a distant memory. He said in a low voice, physical body. My physical body was too weak. It could not merge with the indestructible true spirit, and my heart was too big. As Sun Wukong slowly recounted the events of the past, Yi Xian listened quietly. However, his expression gradually turned serious until he became silent. According to Sun Wukong's words, Yi Xian finally knew where his future path was. However, the more he understood the path to becoming a sage to be through strength, the more a terrifying pressure appeared on his mind. If Yi Xian wanted to become a sage to be, it was very simple. He just needed to absorb endless power and transform his indestructible primordial spirit into an indestructible true spirit. Then, he could directly enter the ranks of the sage to be. Perhaps in the eyes of outsiders, Yi Xian had already entered the ranks of the sage to be. However, to Yi Xian who cultivated the Tao through strength, he was only a half-step to sage to be. Because Yi Xian cultivated the Tao through strength, it was not enough to transform his indestructible primordial spirit into an indestructible true spirit. He also needed to cultivate the Daoyuo immortal body to great success. Only when his spirit and body became one could he truly enter the ranks of the sage to be. Moreover, he would be the first sage to be in the world to use strength to prove his Tao. In the past, Sun Wukong had only condensed the indestructible true spirit, but his physical body still had a great flaw. When he encountered the 9 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, just the first tribulation almost caused his soul to scatter and die. If he had not dispersed the method of using strength to prove his Tao, and switched to the art of severing 3 corpses, he would have died long ago and disappeared from the world. Chapter 644. Of course, using strength to prove the Tao was hailed as the strongest technique in the world. Only demi-saints could truly display the terror of this technique. Half-step demi-saints were completely comparable to demi-saints who had severed one of their corpses. Against demi-saints who had not severed the good and evil corpses, they were invincible and could kill them on the spot. If Yi Xian could become one with his body and cultivate the Daoyuo immortal body to great success, allowing him to truly step into the ranks of demi-saints, even demi-saints who had severed the good and evil corpses would not be his match. Each of the 9 tribulations of the heavenly Tao was a life or death tribulation. If he could pass the first 3 tribulations, he could completely challenge saints. The so-called Nuwa of the 3 pure ones could only fight to a draw with Yi Xian. And if Yi Xian could pass the 6 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, he would completely surpass saints. While he did not dare to say whether he could kill saints, he would absolutely have no problem sweeping away the 3 pure ones and the others. If Yi Xian could pass the 9 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, he would directly transcend the heavenly Tao and become the saint of all beings. The so-called saints could be destroyed with a single finger. Even Hongjun of the heavenly Tao would not be Yi Xian's match. As Sun Wukong spoke, Yi Xian's expression fluctuated. While he was excited, there was also an extremely heavy expression. Putting aside the terrifying 9 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, Yi Xian alone faced 2 major problems. First, if he wanted to transform his indestructible primordial spirit into an indestructible true spirit and step into half-step demi-saint, he would need to devour an endless amount of cultivation Tao fruits. But where could he devour cultivation Tao fruits that could help him step into half-step demi-saint? Devouring the so-called Daluo Jingxian was like throwing a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Only the cultivation Tao fruits of the demi-saint could help him transform his primordial spirit into an indestructible true spirit as quickly as possible. This would also allow him to possess the power of a demi-saint who had severed one of their corpses. Second, the Daluo immortal body was only 1 step away from great success. But this step was like the difference between heaven and earth. He could not see any hope. Looking at Yi Xian's silence, Sun Wukong sighed and said, "I've said what I need to say. You can leave now. This can be considered a good karma between you and me." After Sun Wukong finished speaking, he closed his eyes slightly. Obviously, he had given the order to leave and did not want to have any more interactions with Yi Xian. Unfortunately, Yi Xian didn't move. A bright light flashed through his eyes. At this moment, he was constantly examining Sun Wukong, and a deep expression appeared in his eyes. Yi Xian sat cross-legged as he stared at Sun Wukong. His voice became calm as he asked, "The devil monkey in your body is the evil corpse that you killed, right?" Rumble. Sun Wukong opened his eyes, and his golden pupils were buzzing. He looked at Yi Xian with a hint of hostility. "You are very bold. You actually want to hit on me?" Sun Wukong said in a low voice. "You're wrong. I'm not hitting on you. I'm saving you." A strange smile appeared on the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. He looked straight at Sun Wukong, and his voice was gentle and warm, as if he was talking to an old friend of many years. "Saving me?" Sun Wukong smiled. His smile was too Buddha-like and did not have any hostility. Instead, it was filled with compassion. However, his gaze towards Yi Xian became more and more unfriendly. "You're so funny. You're probably hitting on my evil corpse, aren't you?" Sun Wukong's voice gradually turned cold. "Haha." Suddenly, Yi Xian laughed loudly. His laughter echoed in all directions. When he stopped laughing, his calm voice also sounded at this moment. "You're right. I'm hitting on your evil corpse. Moreover, I have a heaven-defying technique that can devour the cultivation of others. If I can devour the cultivation of the evil corpse in your body, it will allow me to step into the half-step quasi-saint." Yi Xian did not hide his intentions and directly stated his intentions. "Hee." Sun Wukong laughed, except his smile gradually turned cold. "I must say you're very bold. Aren't you afraid of being reduced to ashes here?" Rumble. The light that blotted out the sky rose up, and the space in the surroundings changed. A huge, golden hand blotted out the sky, unleashing unimaginable power, as if it could fall towards Yi Xian at any time. A quasi-saint who had severed a corpse was not something the myriad poison ancestor could compare to. Even though Yi Xian was a peak grand immortal right now, he would probably suffer unimaginable injuries against an extremely terrifying quasi-saint like Sun Wukong, even if he managed to escape with his life. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was not fazed by Sun Wukong's murderous aura at all. He continued to smile at Sun Wukong. "There's no need for that, fellow. Can you listen to me slowly? If you find what I'm saying to be useless, we can fight. Even if I die to your hands, Yi Xian will have no complaints." Yi Xian smiled. "All right. You might be eloquent, but it's a pity that I'm not a 3-year-old child." Sun Wukong squinted his eyes, and the palm that blotted out the sky silently dispersed. The surroundings fell silent once more. "Fellow, you were originally a 5-colored divine rock, and your original form was the wise rock monkey. You've transcended the 3 realms and the 5 elements. You've even practiced the method of proving your path through strength in the past, which also proves that you're unwilling to submit to others. It's just a pity that you failed on the verge of success in the end, so you could only switch to the method of severing the 3 corpses to become a saint. But fellow Taoist, have you ever thought about it? Since the creation of the world, the only person in this world who was able to cut off the 3 corpses was Tao ancestor Hongjun. Those 6 saints of the world were only able to become saints through virtue. What does that have to do with me? Sun Wukong said coldly. The 3 corpses are the good corpse, the evil corpse, and the self. Fellow, you used your great willpower and wisdom to sever the evil corpse, and in the future, you can also sever the good corpse. Even if you have the courage to sever the self and achieve the supreme position of a saint, have you ever considered that at that time, you'll still be the real you? As Yi Xian finished speaking, Sun Wukong clenched his fists tightly and stared at Yi Xian. He did not refute Yi Xian's words, but if one were to sense carefully, one would discover that his breathing was slightly chaotic. Let's not talk about whether you can successfully sever the 3 corpses to become a saint. Even if you become the second person to sever the 3 corpses to become a saint, you'll be emotionless and emotionless, just like the rules of the heavenly Tao. Is this the future you want? Fellow, you can take a look at your evil corpse. That's the former you. You used to be called the great sage, heaven's equal. You used to be called Sun Wukong, and not the divine fighting Buddha of today. Lawless and unruly, you dared to pierce the heavens with the Rui Jingu Bang. You dared to roar at the injustice of the heavenly Tao, but the former you was severed by yourself. Is this the path you want to take? Yi Xian's voice exploded in Sun Wukong's mind like the morning bell and the evening drum. It was like thunder from the 9 heavens. Sun Wukong's body and mind trembled violently, and he fell into an indescribable state. Wang! Suddenly, Sun Wukong flipped his palms, and his body emitted a dazzling light. The devil monkey sealed in his body walked out. When the devil monkey appeared in the outside world, and saw Yi Xian nodding and smiling at him, the devil monkey clenched his fists. Although his body was surrounded by demonic aura and demonic light, he still bowed to Yi Xian. Fellow, thank you for speaking up for justice, the devil monkey said in a low voice. Then, he suddenly turned to look at Sun Wukong. He looked directly at Sun Wukong and said, True body, you and I are of the same mind. If you really want to take the path of severing the 3 corpses to become a saint, we'll settle this today. This way, you won't be troubled by my evil corpse. Who are you? Sun Wukong's eyes were confused, but he stared at the devil monkey in front of him. It was as if he was asking the answer he had always wanted to know. Who am I? The devil monkey smiled proudly. Tongtian's demonic light soared into the sky, and his roar echoed in all directions. I'm the great sage, heaven's equal. I'm Sun Wukong, and I'm the former you. True body. Suddenly, a white light separated from Sun Wukong's body and turned into a golden monkey. Its body was emitting immortal light, and at this moment, it was smiling at Sun Wukong. True body, do you still remember? In the past, there were countless demons in Mount Huagua. At that time, you had no ability, but you still led the monkeys to fight against these demons. In order to protect the monkeys, you fearlessly crossed the East Sea and came to the Aparagodania continent to worship Patriarch Bodhi and learn your skills. If you didn't have kindness in your heart, how could you and I be where we are today? Good corpse. Sun Wukong murmured and trembled. He clearly hadn't severed his good corpse yet, so why would his good corpse appear by itself? The so-called method of severing 3 corpses to become a saint is simply the path of a bad person's foundation. Sun Wukong, do you really want to lose yourself and become a rule in the world that only knows how to operate? After being enlightened and roaring, Yi Xian's voice exploded in Sun Wukong's ears like thunder. Haha! Suddenly Sun Wukong laughed wildly. The boundless world rumbled and shook, and his body shone. This wasn't Buddha's light but a kind of chaotic light. His slightly hunched back straightened at this moment. Moral Bodhi is not a righteous fruit. Today I know that I am me. His roar filled the sky, and the world rumbled. The entire spirited mountain shook violently, and a rebellious aura that dared to ask the heavens for injustice soared into the sky, causing the entire three realms to freeze slightly. Chapter 645. The endless sky rumbled, and thunder raged across the ninth heaven, causing the entire spirit mountain to tremble violently. The expressions of Western Heaven Gautama Buddha and Dipankara Buddha in the great thunderclap temple changed drastically, and their bodies and minds were trembling to the extreme. The Bodhisattvas and Buddhas didn't know what was going on, but a sense of uneasiness suddenly rose in their hearts. On the north peak of Spirit Mountain, "Fellow Taoist, I can't thank you enough. Today I will lend you a hand." Sun Wukong laughed arrogantly. His body was glowing. It was a kind of chaotic divine light that emitted an indescribable temperament. At this moment, he looked at Yi Xian with a solemn expression. "Severing the three corpses and losing myself is not the path I want to take. Today, I will disperse the cultivation of the three corpses. Fellow Taoist, you can swallow as much as you want. It all depends on your ability," Sun Wukong roared. Three corpses returned to origin. Rumble. Heaven and earth shook, and the sky exploded. The devil monkey looked up to the sky and laughed wildly, striding toward Sun Wukong. The golden divine monkey smiled and nodded, also walking toward Sun Wukong. One heart and one body fight the world again. The good and evil corpses roared in the sky. The two figures collapsed inch by inch, directly turning into two imprints that merged into Sun Wukong's body. Two unimaginable forces condensed in the void, which was obviously the power of the quasi-sage left behind by the good and evil corpses. "Fellow Taoist, if you don't swallow now, when will you?" Sun Wukong roared arrogantly, and his aura soared into the sky. "Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist." Yi Xian cupped his hands and bowed. His robe rumbled, and a wisp of fog surrounded him. His figure gradually became illusory, and an extremely terrifying suction force appeared in his body. Tribulation Transcender Technique. Buzz! Heaven and earth turned upside down. The sun and moon lost their light, and the world suddenly darkened. Flying above the north peak of Spirit Mountain, Yi Xian seemed to have turned into a terrifying vortex, directly swallowing the power of the quasi-sage left behind by the good and evil corpses into his body. Rumble! Boundless darkness swept across heaven and earth, and an unimaginable fluctuation grew in the north peak of Spirit Mountain. There was also an extreme terror rising in the hearts of all living beings in the three realms. Loneliness, darkness, withered despair, and all kinds of negative emotions grew in the world. Even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas on spirit were agitated, and a sense of brutality rose in their hearts. Amitabha. Suddenly, the sound of thunder rumbled and chanted sutras. The shadows of Buddhas appeared in the sky. A huge Buddha face appeared on the north peak of Spirit Mountain. A demon-subduing golden light bloomed in the sky. The world is in chaos, and there is a great calamity of darkness. This child's demonic roots are deep, and he cannot be left alive. Wukong, you are helping the evildoer. Buddhas, 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 and Buddhas, 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 and the Buddha, 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 Buddha of his Lord Buddha God, of God, of his of God, of ye of it his of them, of say. Medicine King glazed Buddha. Sun Wukong's chaotic divine light shrouded him. He looked up at the sky, and a fierce light bloomed from his eyes. His ferocious roar that shook the universe exploded between heaven and earth. Medicine King glazed Buddha was one of the Western Buddhas. He had never appeared in the three realms, but he was a high and mighty quasi-saint. He was also an unimaginably terrifying figure. He was not someone Duobao Rulai and Dipankara Buddha could compare to. The sea of bitterness is boundless. Repent and you'll see the shore. This man is obsessed with killing. If he becomes a quasi-saint, there will be an unimaginable catastrophe in the three realms. The sky was boundless, and the Buddha's face was ferocious. The Medicine King glazed Buddha let out a low roar, and a ring of Buddha's light rose in the sky. There was also an unimaginably terrifying fluctuation that bloomed. Indomitable and unyielding. If you dare to stop him from achieving the Tao, have you asked for the permission of the iron rod in my hand? Unbridled and lawless. Sun Wukong's chaotic divine light soared into the sky, and his domineering voice exploded in the spiritual mountain. The boundless earth rumbled, and a terrifying ravine also appeared at this moment. Come cudgel! Rumble! Heaven and earth buzzed and time and space trembled. A golden light shot up from the ground, and a golden iron staff bloomed with thousands of rays of golden light. The chaotic golden light shot in all directions, and Sun Wukong held it in his hand. Take this! The iron staff danced in the sky, and Sun Wukong laughed wildly. He swung the iron staff against the sky, and the golden staff shadow turned into 100,000 miles long, as if it was going to pierce through the sky. Bang! 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 The iron staff split the sky, and the Dharma form dominated the world. Sun Wukong was indeed an earth-shattering peerless figure. His body turned into 100,000 feet long, and the iron staff swept in all directions, smashing the sky, covering Buddha's face into pieces, and shattering this part of the world. Amitabha! The exorcist roared and Buddha's light filled the sky. An old monk with 9-colored Buddha's light appeared in the sky. He put his palms together and chanted Buddha's name. The Buddha's light around him disrupted the void, and he was glaring at Sun Wukong. Wukong, the sea of bitterness is boundless. Repent and you'll see the shore. Medicine King Glazed Buddha's words were like spring thunder. There's no road in the sea of bitterness. Press forward. If God blocks you, kill God. If Buddha blocks you, kill Buddha. Sun Wukong laughed sinisterly. He swung the iron staff, and billions of iron staff shadows whizzed through the sky, smashing down on Medicine King Glazed Buddha with terrifying killing power. Clang! The iron staff suppressed the mountains and rivers. The entire spirit mountain shook violently, and the endless peaks turned into dust. Medicine King Glazed Buddha's face was gloomy, and his Buddha's palms struck the void, blocking Sun Wukong's violent and terrifying smashing. Wukong, you've been a Buddha for many years. Are you going to become a demon again? Medicine King Glazed Buddha retreated step by step, but his Buddha's palms were flipping the sky. Millions of Buddha's light appeared in all directions, and he questioned Sun Wukong loudly. What is Buddha? What is a demon? Old Sun doesn't respect heaven and earth, and doesn't respect immortals and Buddhas. So what if I become a demon? Sun Wukong laughed sinisterly, and swung the iron staff in his hand. Every smash of the iron staff made Medicine King Glazed Buddha retreat continuously, and the Buddha's light around him collapsed inch by inch. Sun Wukong was too terrifying, and his combat power was unimaginable. Although he had dispersed the art of severing 3 corpses, he was still a sage to be, and had once walked the path of Tao through strength. Medicine King Glazed Buddha was no match for him at all. Wukong, you're stubborn. If you continue to cause trouble, and provoke the 2 sages of the West to punish you, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape the punishment of the sages. Medicine King Glazed Buddha said angrily. The heavenly Tao is unfair. The sages are the children, and I'm just a chess piece in this world. If the 2 sages of the West dare to appear here, I won't be afraid, even if I die in the hands of the sages. Sun Wukong laughed wildly and roared. His iron staff seemed to have swung the entire sky, and his explosive words resounded throughout the spirit mountain. It also made the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in all directions keep quiet out of fear, and their hearts trembled. Chapter 646. Good, good, good. Medicine King Glazed Buddha uttered the word good 3 times in a row. His face was somewhat ferocious as he said, Since you insist on being his Tao protector, I shall come and see how you, Sun Wukong, will face the saint's censure. Medicine King Glazed Buddha escaped into nothingness, turning into a Buddha light bubble and dissipating. Clearly, Yi Xian had Sun Wukong as his Tao protector, and he could not stop Yi Xian from entering the sage-to-be. Rumble! Above the firmament, between heaven and earth, Sun Wukong tore off the Buddhist kasaya on his body, revealing his golden hair. He held the iron staff in his hand and looked around. His fierce eyes were emitting chaotic divine light, and his domineering words echoed between heaven and earth. Whoever dares to stop Yi Xian from attaining the Tao is my enemy. You should ask the iron staff in my hand if it agrees. Heaven and earth exploded and the clouds surged. Above the firmament of Spirited Mountain, Sun Wukong stood proudly between heaven and earth. His ferocious aura pervaded the air, and an unimaginable fighting spirit rose around him. No one responded. Heaven and earth were silent. Sun Wukong was too powerful, and he was too brilliant. He merely stood in the firmament, and all the bodhisattvas and Buddhas were silent. Even the ancient Buddhas hidden in the depths of spirited mountainside. Heaven and earth were stagnant and all was silent. Sun Wukong stood proudly between heaven and earth, while Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the north peak. The two echoed each other from a distance, as if they were painting a peerless picture that had never been seen before. Yi Xian and Sun Wukong were, to a large extent, the same kind of people. If there was a difference, perhaps it was that Yi Xian was more cold-blooded and heartless. It was just that Sun Wukong and Yi Xian met here and produced a great good karma. Today, Sun Wukong was protecting Yi Xian and helping him to enter the sage-to-be. Of course, the so-called quasi-saint was just a name. Yi Xian had devoured the power of the good and evil corpses. He could turn his indestructible primordial spirit into an indestructible true spirit and enter the half-step quasi-saint realm. Although a half-step quasi-saint was not a true quasi-saint, one should not forget that Yi Xian walked the path of proving the Tao through strength. A half-step quasi-saint was already equivalent to an ordinary quasi-saint who had severed one corpse. If he could cultivate the origin immortal body to great success, when his spirit and body became one, he would be able to match a quasi-saint who had severed two corpses. He could even be said to be invincible in the same realm. The clouds in the sky continued to flow, the sun rose and the moon set, and the stars moved. With Sun Wukong protecting Yi Xian, Yi Xian's cultivation this time took a total of 3,000 years. After these 3,000 years, Yi Xian's zenith heaven immortal light gradually turned illusory, and a weak wisp of holy light slowly condensed around him. During this time, the little girl had swallowed the lotus seed of virtue and remained unconscious. After 3,000 years, her young body did not grow. On the contrary, she absorbed the origin immortal light emitted by Yi Xian and entered an indescribable state of meditation. Shedding her mortal body and becoming an immortal was a great opportunity for the little girl. She had consumed the lotus seed of virtue and stayed by Yi Xian's side while he was breaking through to the half-step quasi-saint realm. When she woke up, she would turn from a mortal into a true immortal. Rumble! Suddenly, an explosion sounded out from the originally silent world. A ray of chaotic divine light soared into the sky, and Yi Xian, who was at the peak of the northern peak, slowly opened his eyes. A ray of chaotic and boundless divine light circled around him. Indestructible true spirit. The divine light in Yi Xian's eyes exploded as he formed a hand seal with the immortal art. A black light blossomed from his forehead, as the indestructible origin spirit, in his sea of consciousness, completely turned into darkness. When the indestructible origin spirit exploded, only a black light remained floating in his sea of consciousness. Neither created nor destroyed, neither impure nor pure. This indestructible true spirit was obscure and obscure. However, an extremely terrifying ripple of energy was released, causing the world outside to distort to the extreme, as an unimaginable darkness enveloped the world. All things were silent as the boundless darkness rippled in the sky above Spirit Mountain. Mysterious chanting could be heard in the void of the heavens, while blood-colored lightning flickered in the clouds. Condense! Yi Xian roared to the sky as his gray hair fluttered in the wind. A chaotic divine light rose around him, causing the void in all directions to distort to the extreme, and causing the void within thousands of miles to be annihilated. Half-step to sage-to-be? Yi Xian stood on the northern peak. His body was tall and straight like an ancient pine tree, as his perplexed eyes gradually focused. He could completely feel that his life level had undergone a great change. This change was inexplicable, as it was an evolution of life level. To make an inappropriate analogy, if Yi Xian was a blade in the past, then it would only be a blade that hadn't been sharpened. Although it could kill people, it would always feel powerless. However, when Yi Xian stepped into the half-step to sage-to-be, this blade had already been sharpened and had become extremely sharp. If Yi Xian had to use 10% of his strength to kill people in the past, Now he only needed 10% of his strength to do what he used to do with 10% of his strength. This was the change brought to Yi Xian by the difference in life level. Power. What great power! Yi Xian murmured to himself. He clenched his fists slightly, directly crushing the space in his hands, and creating an extremely terrifying spatial crack. Congratulations, fellow. Suddenly, a low voice sounded out from the sky. Sun Wukong walked towards Yi Xian with an iron staff in his hand. He had a kind smile on his face. If you hadn't helped me, how could Yi Xian have possibly broken through the shackles? Yi Xian bowed. If you hadn't pointed out the path ahead for me, Yi Xian would probably still have sunk into the sea of suffering and would never wake up. Yi Xian bowed a second time. If you hadn't protected me, Yi Xian would definitely have suffered a great calamity today. Yi Xian bowed a third time. His face had become extremely solemn. The three kowtows were sincere. Yi Xian was a very proud person, but he had to do the three kowtows. If Sun Wukong hadn't helped him today, he wouldn't have been able to step into the half-step sage to be. Firstly, if he hadn't devoured the power of the good and evil corpses, Yi Xian wouldn't have been able to condense the undying true spirit so quickly. Secondly, if Sun Wukong hadn't revealed the profound meaning of using strength to prove the Tao, Yi Xian would still be immersed in the lies of Tao ancestor Hongjun. Thirdly, if Sun Wukong hadn't protected him, the Medicine King Glazed Buddha alone would have caused him to suffer a great calamity when he broke through. The three kowtows weren't enough to express his gratitude to Sun Wukong, but it was the only thing Yi Xian could do at the moment. Fellow, you don't have to do this. If you hadn't enlightened me, I'm afraid I would have been annihilated between heaven and earth in the future. Sun Wukong bowed to express his gratitude to Yi Xian. Looking at Sun Wukong's solemn expression, Yi Xian said in a low voice, Actually, fellow, you should understand that my words are only the opinion of one person. It can be considered as ruining your path to becoming a saint. Chapter 647. To be honest, Yi Xian felt a little guilty towards Sun Wukong. Although he had pointed out the drawbacks of the three-corpse severing technique, it was fundamentally to devour the demi-saint force of the evil corpse. Only then could he break through his shackles. Sun Wukong had dispersed the three-corpse severing technique, which was equivalent to cutting off his path to becoming a saint. If Sun Wukong wanted to become a saint, he could only become a saint through merit. Even if he used strength to prove his Tao, he could not continue on this path, because he had destroyed his own path. Haha. Sun Wukong patted Yi Xian's shoulder and comforted him. Fellow Taoist, you don't have to blame yourself. Just as you said, if I have already lost myself, then what's the point of me living? Thank you for your understanding, fellow Taoist. If you need my help in the future, as long as you send a message to me, even if a saint descends, Yi Xian will not sit idly by. Yi Xian was not a wishy-washy person, and directly made an earth-shattering promise to Sun Wukong. Haha. Looking at Yi Xian's solemn expression, Sun Wukong was startled at first. He looked at Yi Xian with a complicated expression, then suddenly laughed wildly. Good. I thought I was the only one in the world who did not take a saint seriously. But today, fellow Taoist, you have let me know that I am not the only one in this world who is arrogant. If a saint really wants to punish you and me, even if we are separated by millions of miles, I will still lend you a hand. The two looked at each other and laughed, and there was a faint feeling of appreciation for each other. Brother Yi, today we will part ways. If we are fated to meet in the future, we should drink together. Sun Wukong smiled slightly, and the chaotic divine light around him rose. It was obvious that he already had the intention to part. Where are you going? Yi Xian asked softly. Today we will settle the grudges of the past. This spiritual mountain has trapped me for endless time. I have to seek justice for myself. Sun Wukong laughed out loud. Haha. Yi Xian laughed out loud. Your matter is my matter. Why don't we crush this spiritual mountain? All right. Sun Wukong's eyes lit up. He leaped into the air with the iron staff in his hand. Yi Xian carried the sleeping girl and took a step forward, walking side by side with Sun Wukong. On this day, the great thunderclap temple of Spiritual Mountain encountered an unimaginable calamity. Half of the spirited mountain was collapsing, and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were mourning. The great thunderclap temple, which had never fallen since ancient times, had turned into dust. Duobao Rilai was beaten black and blue, and a large amount of Buddhist snow fell from the sky. Rumble! The chaotic divine light spread across thousands of miles, and the boundless nirvana vacuum covered the entire spirited mountain. The Bodhisattvas and Buddhas were crying loudly, and some even disregarded the dignity of Buddhism and fled from the spirited mountain. 33 heavens beyond heaven. Under the Bodhi tree, 2 figures sat cross-legged under a tree with a chessboard placed on it. Black and white chess pieces were spread out on the chessboard. At this moment, they were playing chess leisurely, as if they did not know that Spirit Mountain had suffered a great calamity. Senior brother, the Western sect was founded by you and me. If we let them do as they please, we will lose face, Taoist Junti said peacefully. Junior brother, don't be impatient. This monkey has been tricked by us, and has been trapped in Spirited Mountain for an endless period of time. This time, he has severed his path to becoming a saint, and his heart is filled with anger. We should let him vent, Taoist Jieyin said with a smile. Senior brother is right, but what I'm really worried about is Yi Xian. I'm only afraid that he... Junti frowned slightly and stopped speaking. Yi Xian seems to be unscrupulous, but he won't destroy the orthodoxy of Spirited Mountain. After all, with you and me holding the fort, he still has a lot of scruples, Taoist Jieyin said softly. Suddenly, Taoist Jieyin frowned and looked at Spirited Mountain with his Dharma eyes. He saw Yi Xian condensing a killing technique with his palm and fingers. When he slammed his palm down, countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas died tragically between heaven and earth. This brat, how dare he? Jieyin's expression turned extremely ugly. He had just said that Yi Xian would not destroy the orthodoxy of Spirited Mountain because of his scruples, but now he saw Yi Xian's vicious attack. He simply wanted to destroy the Western sect in one fell swoop. Senior brother, I told you that this person is not under our control. It seems that I have no choice but to take action. Junti frowned. When he flipped his palm, the Tree of 7 Wonders cut through the 33 heavens and directly appeared above Spirited Mountain. An extremely terrifying saint's aura also shrouded the entire Spirited Mountain. Spirited Mountain Great Thunderclap Temple. The Tree of 7 Wonders spanned between heaven and earth. Yi Xian and Sun Wukong stood side by side. When they saw the Tree of 7 Wonders covering Spirited Mountain, they knew that the saints had already taken action. If they continued to kill, they would definitely provoke the 2 saints of the Western sect. Brother Yi, the 2 saints of the Western sect have already taken action. It's time for us to leave. Sun Wukong's eyes were cold, as if he was looking through the firmament at the 33 heavens. Don't worry, elder brother. The day I become a saint will be the day Spirited Mountain is destroyed. Yi Xian said calmly, but his words contained great terror. A worthy younger brother, remember what I said. If you step into the sage-to-be, and can pass the 3 tribulations of the heavenly way, you can challenge the saints. Otherwise, you must not rashly provoke the 6 saints of the world. You will suffer an unimaginable calamity. Sun Wukong warned solemnly. Don't worry, elder brother. A worthy younger brother has his own ideas. Yi Xian said calmly. After today's parting, I don't know when we can meet again. But a worthy younger brother, don't worry. If you suffer in the future, I will stand by your side with my iron staff, even if we are separated by hundreds of millions of miles. Sun Wukong said firmly. This is also what I want to say to you. Yi Xian smiled. Elder brother, why don't you return to the celestial court with me? You and I can rebuild the ancient celestial court. We can reproduce the power of the ancient celestial court. Yi Xian urged him to stay before they parted. I'm used to being free. I've been trapped in Spirited Mountain for endless time, and can't stand any more restrictions. Moreover, I still have some things to do. A worthy younger brother. I appreciate your good intentions. Sun Wukong's eyes drifted, and a beautiful figure appeared in his mind. A self-deprecating smile flashed across his eyes, as if he remembered something he didn't want to recall. A worthy younger brother, I'm leaving. Sun Wukong took a step forward, and a golden cloud rose under his feet. He directly soared into the sky. He waved at Yi Xian, and turned into a stream of light that disappeared between heaven and earth. Looking at Sun Wukong's departure, Yi Xian sighed helplessly. Although Sun Wukong didn't say what he was going to do, Yi Xian could roughly guess it. However, there were some things that Yi Xian couldn't help with. Sun Wukong had to solve them himself. 3 breaths of time passed. Yi Xian held the sleeping little girl. He glanced at the half-destroyed spirited mountain, and directly soared into the sky without any reluctance. Only the devastated Buddhas of Spirited Mountain were left crying in the Tempest Temple. Chapter 648. Yi Xian was now in a state where he could not see the great thunder after traversing the mountains and rivers for 90,000 miles. The heavens were vast, and Yi Xian's divine light rippled through the 9 heavens. This kind of light was too mysterious and too resplendent. The difference in the level of life caused Yi Xian to have an extremely different feeling towards this world. Half-step to sage to be, undying true spirit. This was Yi Xian's realm at the moment. Every step he took, he shuttled through the void space. His figure was illusory, as if he was about to leave the 3 realms. Yi Xian wandered between heaven and earth, calmly feeling the cultivation of half-step to sage to be. With a thought, the void shattered and the mountains turned into dust. It was like a dream, but the power was so terrifying that even Yi Xian's mind was stirred up. Half-step to sage to be is already so terrifying. If I really step into sage to be, no one but a sage can be my opponent. Yi Xian murmured excitedly, a fierce look flashing across his eyes. Give up and I'll spare your life. Suddenly, an angry roar came from thousands of miles away. 2 flowing lights chased after each other, and the sound of weapons clashing could be heard from time to time. Apparently, 2 immortals were fighting. Fierce fights between immortals were very common in the 3 realms. Yi Xian would not care about such trivial matters. But when he opened his Dharma eyes, he saw a familiar figure. Interesting. Yi Xian smiled strangely. He took a step and disappeared, heading toward the place where the 2 were fighting. The vast sky and void rumbled. 2 light shadows intertwined. The fire-tipped spear and the golden long saber collided with each other. With a loud bang, the 2 separated immediately, and blood spilled in the sky. Neza, you committed patricide. You are a disciple of the clan of enlightenment. Today, I, the divine general, will kill you here to restore the name of the clan of enlightenment. A golden-armored divine general held a saber in his hand, and the golden light of Luotian shone brightly. On the other hand, Neza was covered in blood, and there were saber wounds all over his body. Apparently, he had suffered an unimaginable injury during the fierce fight with the divine general. Did my master send you to kill me? Neza growled ferociously. His eyes were trembling, and he was questioning the golden-armored divine general angrily. Neza, no matter what, you're still a 3rd-generation disciple of the Chan school. Perfected Tai only wants you to die here on account of our master-disciple relationship in the past. He can send you to reincarnation. This can be considered your fortune, the golden-armored divine general said righteously. Bullshit. Do you really think I'm a 3-year-old child? Neza roared angrily, but his eyes were filled with despair and indescribable hatred. Back then, Neza left the celestial court with the crime of killing Li Jing. When he met Tai Junren, he saw that his master was fierce and wanted to kill him personally. If he had not risked his life to escape, he would have been killed by Tai Junren. The clan of enlightenment was the orthodox Taoist sect. No matter what, it was impossible for them to tolerate someone like Neza, who had killed his father. By the time he understood this, it was already too late. That was because the clan of enlightenment had announced to the outside world that Neza was no longer a disciple of the clan of enlightenment. They had even issued an order to kill this unfilial person who had killed his father. The world was so big that there was no place for him to stay. For so many years, Neza had been on the run. Even when he was cultivating, he would be awakened by nightmares. He had once gone to the 33 heavens and knelt in front of the Nuwa palace, begging the Nuwa to uphold justice for him. Unfortunately, although he was Ling Juzi in his previous life, and was a boy by Nuwa's side, He was a disciple of the clan of enlightenment in this life. Saint Nuwa would naturally not give orders to the clan of enlightenment for him. In the end, Neza left dejectedly, and could only hide in the three realms. However, the disciples of the clan of enlightenment were all over the world. Every once in a while, he would be discovered. That was how the battle with the golden-armored divine general happened. Die! The divine saber was sharp and the immortal light was resplendent. The golden-armored divine general smiled ferociously. He was a guardian of the clan of enlightenment. Although his reputation was not obvious in the three realms, his cultivation level was at the peak of the all-heaven golden immortal realm. Although Neza was in the same realm as him, he had long been seriously injured. It was not difficult to kill him. Pfft! Blood splattered in the sky as Neza groaned. A long and terrifying wound was directly slashed open on his chest. A large amount of blood spurted out, causing Neza to roar miserably. His eyes were filled with despair and unwillingness. Die! The golden-armored divine general slashed over with his saber. His face was extremely ruthless, as if he had already seen Neza dying under his saber. Buzz! Suddenly, an extremely strange and shocking thing happened. The world suddenly froze, and the golden-armored divine general's body instantly stiffened. Even the ruthless smile on his face became extremely strange. Crack! The golden-armored divine general's body shattered inch by inch. A cool breeze blew over, and turned him into a wisp of ash that dissipated between heaven and earth. Such a strange scene stunned Neza on the spot, and he didn't recover from it for more than 10 breaths. Who is it? I wonder which almighty being has saved me. Neza greets you once again. Neza immediately came back to his senses. He knew that a powerful person must have passed by, and it must be a Daluo Jinxian. Otherwise, it would be impossible for there to be such a terrifying divine power that could silently kill the golden-armored divine general. Ha! A chuckle came from the void. Yi Xian quietly appeared in front of Neza, and looked at Neza with a deep gaze. Yi Xian! Neza growled in shock. He took more than 10 steps back, and protected his body with the fire-tipped spear in his hand. He looked at Yi Xian with fear in his eyes. Neza never thought that Yi Xian would appear in front of him. What was even more unbelievable was that Yi Xian would save his life. I haven't seen you for many years. Looks like you haven't been doing well, Yi Xian said calmly. Neza's face turned red. He roared at Yi Xian, but there was a complicated look in his eyes. What do you want? There's no need to be so nervous. If I wanted to kill you, do you think you can still be safe now? Yi Xian smiled. Yi Xian, it's all thanks to you that I'm here today. If you want to kill me, then kill me. There's no need to fool me. Neza put down the fire-tipped spear. He knew that he was no match for Yi Xian. I'll give you a chance. As long as you follow me loyally, I can guarantee your safety in the three realms. From now on, you won't have to hide like a stray dog. As Yi Xian finished speaking, Neza was stunned. He did not recover for a long time. Why are you helping me? Neza asked in surprise. In terms of cultivation, he was only a golden immortal of the great firmament. Yi Xian had countless grand heavenly immortals under his command. He was no more than an ant in Yi Xian's eyes. He could kill him with a wave of his hand. Neza really did not understand why Yi Xian wanted to subdue him. Chapter 649. There's no reason. Follow me if you're willing. If you're not, I won't make things difficult for you or kill you. You can leave on your own. Yi Xian smiled and strolled into the distance. This caused Neza's expression to change. However, when he saw Yi Xian's disappearing figure, a ruthless and decisive look appeared in his eyes. He no longer hesitated and chased after Yi Xian. When a person reaches a dead end and has nowhere to go, when he sees the last glimmer of hope, he will definitely not let go. The pursuit of the Chan sect, the abandonment of the sage Nuwa, and the abandonment of Neza by the entire world had already caused him to despair. However, when Yi Xian appeared, he saw hope again. When a person has hope, his fighting spirit will be reignited. At this moment, Neza was like that. This was also the person that Yi Xian needed. Perhaps some people would ask, why would Yi Xian want to subdue a mere Neza? In fact, Yi Xian was nurturing the Celestial Court's team, and building a foundation for himself. That's right, there were many Daluo Jinxian in the celestial court. However, most of them were only at the first boundary of the Daluo realm. There were very few people at the second boundary. As for the third boundary, there was only the demonic rock. After all, Kong Xian was from Spirited Mountain, and had yet to officially join the celestial court. The Empyrean Fairy was only at the seventh heaven of the Daluo realm. The celestial court's combat power was not enough to suppress the three realms. What Yi Xian valued was not Neza's cultivation, but his potential. That's right, potential. Neza was a third-generation disciple of the Chan sect. His talent and comprehension were top-notch. No matter what kind of mantra or abhijna he had, the Chan sect would not have focused on nurturing him. However, in Yi Xian's opinion, the way the Chan school nurtured their disciples was too formulaic. Furthermore, perfected Tai was only the first watershed in the Zenith Heaven realm. How could such a person nurture a good disciple? Yi Xian, on the other hand, was different. He had the 9 transformations great overarching golden pill, the entire peach garden, and the various immortal techniques of the divine Tongtian court of the heaven, earth and mortal realms. If Yi Xian wanted to nurture Neza, Yi Xian was very sure that he would be able to help Neza step into the second grand heavenly realm in less than 30,000 years. It was not impossible for Neza to step into the sage to be in the future. There was no such thing as fairness in this world. Everyone was born at a different starting line. Neza's cultivation talent was 1,000 times stronger than ordinary people. This was why Yi Xian valued him so much. Yi Xian was very ambitious. He wanted to rebuild the ancient celestial court and completely control the three realms. He wanted to be on an equal footing with the sages, and even surpass the sages to become the real master of the three realms. However, rice had to be eaten one mouthful at a time. The road had to be taken one step at a time. This was only the beginning, because when Yi Xian stepped into the half-step sage to be, he had already looked ahead, and could feel the pressure given to him by the 6 great sages. The fragrance of flowers and birds assailed one's senses. In a temple, incense was burning in spirals. A beautiful girl in green was burning incense and praying in the temple. She knelt on a futon and kept kowtowing to the statue of Niwa. Goddess Niwa, Funga kowtows to you. The girl in green had a picturesque appearance. She emitted an ethereal aura like a fairy that lived in the mortal world. With a single glance, the irritation in one's heart would vanish like smoke. First, I beg of Lady Niwa to protect the dire monster race. Second, I beg of Lady Niwa's body to be safe and sound. Third, I beg of the three realms to be peaceful and untainted by slaughter. The green-robed maiden kowtowed sincerely, her beautiful face filled with compassion. Funga, come out and play. Suddenly, several charming laughter came from outside the temple. A few Green Hill girls were greeting Shuefunga. However, they didn't dare to make too much noise outside the temple. Clearly, the Green Hill Fox clan had a deep reverence for the Niwa temple. Sisters, please wait for a moment. I'll come after I wipe Goddess Niwa's statue. Shuefunga smiled apologetically. She got up from the praying mat, and a white cloth appeared in her hand. She began to wipe the statue of Goddess Niwa in an extremely serious and meticulous manner. It took her a full 2 hours to finish wiping the statue of Goddess Niwa. Goddess Niwa, Funga will take her leave. Shuefunga bowed and slowly left the temple of Niwa. She gently closed the temple door and ended today's prayer. If Yi Xian was here, he would definitely recognize that this Shuefunga was the Shuejiai that he had sent to the Green Hill Fox clan. However, Shuejiai's current appearance was poles apart from her previous appearance. She had become extremely beautiful. This kind of beauty didn't come from her appearance. Instead, it came from her temperament. It was an ethereal temperament with a holy and inviolable temperament. The combination of these two temperaments made Shueji comparable to the Empyrean fairy of the past. She could be considered one of the goddesses of the three realms. Inside the temple of Niwa, a ray of holy light faintly blossomed from the statue of Niwa. As the void slightly froze, the eyes of the statue of Niwa actually slowly opened. It was as if the statue had come to life. Your Highness, it has already been 15,800 years since Fengge was born. Ever since she started babbling, she has been kowtowing to you in the temple every day. She has even personally burned incense and prayed to you after morning classes to wipe your golden body. In these 15,800 years, she has never slacked off for a single day. An old woman appeared in the temple. She knelt on a futon and kowtowed to the statue of Nuwa. The statue of Nuwa calmly spoke. However, if one were to listen carefully, one would notice that the voice was slightly moved. The heavens are unpredictable, and the calamity is imminent. This child is fated with me, and can replace the Empyrean fairy as my last disciple. However, I still want to observe her, and see if this child can be the one to face the calamity for my Nuwa palace. On this day, the green hill foxes had a sweet rain falling from the sky and golden lotuses sprouting from the ground. Celestial music rumbled from the heavens, as a holy light descended from the heavens, as a saint's decree descended upon the green hill foxes. Nuwa's decree, the saint's grace. The green hill fox clan trembled and kowtowed. Xuefunga held Nuwa's decree, and walked into the Tongtian light path with a pious expression on her face. As the Tongtian holy light slowly rose, Xuefunga walked towards the Nuwa palace outside the 33rd heaven, under the excited and hopeful gazes of her clansmen. 3 kneels and 9 kowtows the road to heaven. Within the Tongtian holy light, Xuefunga's face was filled with piety. Her white robe was peerless, and she was untainted by even a speck of dust. Every 3 steps she took, she would kneel down and kowtow 3 times. 3 kowtows every 3 steps. On the long road to heaven, Xuefunga seemed to have turned into the most pious disciple of Saint Nuwa. However, no one knew that a trace of excitement flashed through Xuefunga's pure eyes. She did it. She really did it. 15,800 years. A whole 15,800 years. No one knew what kind of torment she had suffered for the past 15,800 years. Day after day, year after year, she did the same thing every day. This was simply driving her crazy. Chapter 650. However, the heavens didn't disappoint those who persevered. She finally did it. She didn't disappoint Yi Xian's expectations. At this moment, she knelt 3 times and kowtowed 9 times as she walked towards the Nuwa palace. This was because she was about to be accepted as a disciple by the Nuwa. She was about to complete the task given to her by Yi Xian. Martial uncle Xueji didn't disappoint you. Xuefunga's heart was trembling, and she was shouting excitedly in her heart. However, she was still very sincere in the outside world, and didn't show any excitement. The water of the river of forgetfulness flowed slowly from the east to the west. The murky river and pale white bones rose, and fell one after another in the water of the river of forgetfulness. There were also countless wails of the dead, the dark sky, the blood-red sun of the underworld, and the howling of the chilly wind all over the sky converged to form a gloomy and terrifying scene. There were even ghost soldiers and ghost generals traversing the void. There were also black and white impermanents whipping the dead and shouting angrily. On the river of forgetfulness, in a vast and boundless arena, the 10 kings of hell were guarding the 8 directions. There was also a majestic figure sitting cross-legged high in the sky, slightly overlooking the vast arena below. On the arena, ghost immortals were roaring, and Yin spirits were roaring. Ghost immortals were bursting out one after another. Ghost immortals could be seen turning into black smoke from time to time. Kill! Ghost immortals roared, and their killing intent soared to the sky. A black-robed man with a 9 venomous immortal sword in his hand could be seen. God knows how many ghost immortals were killed with every slash of his sword. Huang Yukai, you want to become the last disciple of the great emperor? You're daydreaming. Today, I'll let your soul scatter here. A great firmament ghost immortal radiated boundless light from his body. Behind him, a large number of followers surrounded the black-robed man. The black-robed man was only an all-heaven golden immortal. He was no match for this great firmament ghost immortal. At this moment, facing so many people besieging him, there was no doubt that he would die. Huang Youcai's body was covered by a dark light. His figure was slender and tall, and the 9 poisonous immortal sword was blooming with green light. At this moment, He was staring at the great all-embracing ghost immortal in front of him viciously. This was a competition. There was no so-called fairness, victory or defeat. Only those who could survive in the arena could become the disciple of Fengdu Ghost Emperor. 15,800 years. Huang Yukai had waited for a total of 15,800 years. He had continuously developed his own forces in the underworld, and he had done everything he could to improve his cultivation. Today he finally stepped into this arena. As long as he could kill the ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven and his subordinates, he could become the last disciple of the Emperor of Fengdu. However, in the face of a ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven, even if he used all his tricks, he could not be the opponent of this ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven. Go to hell. Although Huang Yukai was only in the great all-embracing heaven golden immortal realm, the ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven regarded Huang Yukai as a great enemy. He did not have any contempt in his heart. It was only because Huang Yucai's means were strange, and all kinds of vicious moves were endless. He had once suffered a great loss in the hands of Huang Yukai. If his cultivation was not in the great all-embracing heaven realm, he was afraid that he would have died in the hands of Huang Yukai. The souls of the dead screamed, and the dark light filled the sky. Dozens of ghost immortals swarmed up, and all kinds of ghost Dao techniques blasted toward Huang Yukai. The ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven condensed the most powerful technique. His whole body turned into a cold ghost knife, and violently slashed toward Huang Yukai. There was no way out, and there was no way out. Huang Yukai held the nineteen poisonous immortal sword in his hand, and his eyes flickered with blood-red light, containing an extremely terrifying madness. You want to kill Lao Tzu? Then let's die together. Huang Yukai roared to the sky. His crazy voice made the river of forgetfulness churn. His ghost immortal body was shining, and the nineteen poisonous immortal sword in his hand was rioting. Mad. Madman. You're a madman. Such a scene directly made the ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven roar in horror. His figure that was charging toward Huang Yukai retreated rapidly, because Huang Yukai had chosen to self-detonate the nineteen poisonous immortal sword with his own body. This was simply a method of mutual destruction. Haha! Huang Yukai laughed wildly. His body was violently swelling, like a rubber ball that was about to explode. The nineteen poisonous immortal sword was shaking violently, and an unimaginably terrifying force was spreading out. Enough! Suddenly, a majestic voice came from the sky. A vast dark light fell on Huang Yucai's body, directly suppressing his self-detonating body. Rumble! The Emperor of Fengdu, covered in ghost fog, was surrounded by the light of the sage-to-be. He silently glanced at Huang Yukai, who was constantly gasping for breath in the arena, and then nodded slightly. The name Huang Yukai is too unpleasant to hear. I'll give you a name. From now on, you'll be called Huang Maji. Huang Yukai, no. He should be called Huang Maji. He knelt on the arena and kowtowed to the Emperor of Fengdu with an excited expression. He said, "Thank you for the name, Emperor. Maji, you're wrong. You should call him Master." King Yanluo laughed and kindly reminded him. Disciple Huang Maji greets Master. Huang Maji said excitedly and kowtowed 3 times to the Emperor of Fengdu. Emperor, this person hasn't won yet. How can you? The ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven woke up from his daze, and said unwillingly. But before he could finish his words, the Emperor of Fengdu in the sky turned his eyes and a dark light fell, directly turning the ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven into black smoke. In terms of means, you're not ruthless enough. In terms of courage, you're afraid of death. Although you're a ghost immortal of the great all-embracing heaven, how can you be my disciple? The Emperor of Fengdu said coldly, causing the entire place to be dead silent. No one dared to make any sound. Huang Maji, I'll give you a triple ghost elixir to heal your injuries. Come and see me at the Fengdu Palace in 7 days. The Emperor of Fengdu said in a low voice, and quietly disappeared into the sky. Maji respectfully sends Master off. Huang Maji kowtowed sincerely. He only got up slowly from the ground when the Emperor of Fengdu had gone far away. Fellow Emoji, from now on, you are the last disciple of the great Emperor. If there is anything you need our help with in the future, You only need to let us know. The 10 Yama kings smiled and greeted Huang Emoji one after another. Clearly, they were trying to curry favor with him. Huang Maji also responded with a smile, and was extremely humble. However, no one could see that there was a flash of passion in Huang Maji's eyes. His fists were slightly clenched, and he didn't even realize that his nails were digging into his palms. This also proved how excited he was in his heart. Sir, Fatso Huang didn't let you down. I've finally become the last disciple of the Emperor of Feng, Du. Huang Maji roared crazily in his heart. But on the surface, he was still smiling at the 10 kings of hell. He appeared even more humble and polite, so no one could notice anything unusual about him. Chapter 651. This was a dark and boundless space. Darkness, death, blood, and decay. It was as if all negative emotions had gathered in this space, and the roars of demonic creatures could be heard from time to time. The devil dimension was a minor world, and it was the world where the ancestral devil, Rahu, resided. This was his Tao ground, and it was the place where his slaughter originated. So when any living being of the 3 dimensions heard of the name of the ancestral devil, Rahu, great terror would arise in their hearts. The center of the demon realm, the ground was paved with endless white bones, and there were blood rivers surging in all directions. Countless demonic creatures' corpses lay across the withered land. Whoosh! The blood rivers surged and converged at the center like rivers flowing into the sea. There was a vast pool of blood at the center, and the pool was churning with blood waves. There were also extremely mournful roars coming from the depths of the pool. A demonic saber, blood red in color, was floating above the pool of blood. Below the demonic saber, a black-clothed youth was sitting in the center of the pool of blood. His body was like a ball, and his pale face was extremely distorted, as if he was suffering unimaginable pain. Rumble, the demon of all demons, was majestic. Fierce demonic roars came from all directions. A black shadow appeared above the pool of blood, staring at the black-clothed youth below. The Blood Sea Purgatory. The demons have experienced thousands of tribulations. If you can absorb the power of the Blood Sea Purgatory and cultivate the 7 demon slayer, then you are worthy to be my disciple. If you can't survive the Blood Sea Purgatory, then you shall die in this Blood Sea Purgatory. The demon lord Luoho growled. Don't worry, master. If I can't cultivate the 7 demon slayer, I will never be born, and I am not worthy to be your disciple. The black-clothed young man let out a low roar. Veins squirmed all over his body like maggots climbing up and down his body. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Guruwachan, I will wait for you to walk out of the Blood Sea Purgatory. The demon ancestor Luoho laughed sinisterly and quietly disappeared above the blood pool. However, he did not notice that an extremely determined look flashed across Guruwachan's bloody and fierce eyes. Sir, Beichen will not disappoint you, nor will he die in the Blood Sea Purgatory. The black-robed youth roared madly in his heart. His hands formed a supreme demonic seal, and once again, he violently absorbed the power of the Blood Sea Purgatory. His entire body was once again swallowed by the blood pool. The sea turned into mulberry fields as time passed. It had been 10,000 years since Yi Xian had stepped into the half-step quasi-saint realm. In these 10,000 years, he had traversed the 4 great continents not only to sense his own cultivation, but also to find an opportunity to complete the origin immortal body. Only by cultivating the origin immortal body to grand completion could it fuse with the indestructible true spirit and allow Yi Xian to truly step into the quasi-saint realm. Yi Xian's heart was very big. He wasn't satisfied with stepping into the half-step quasi-sage realm. This was because as his cultivation increased, he could increasingly feel the danger ahead of him. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to deal with the future calamity. Alas, in these 10,000 years, Yi Xian had only consolidated his cultivation at the half-step quasi-saint realm. No matter how he cultivated the origin immortal body, he could not complete it. Yi Xian knew that he could not force the origin immortal body to grand completion, and there were only 3,000 years left until the 30,000 years he had set for himself. Not bad. 27,000 years had passed since Yi Xian had left the celestial court. There were only 3,000 years left until the 30,000-year mark. On a massive Tongtian peak, in a lush bamboo forest, Yi Xian sat cross-legged at the peak of the mountain as he swallowed the purple aura of the morning sun. Strands of purple aura of the great sun surrounded his body, and the sound of rolling thunder came from all directions. Its vast might was extremely shocking. Bzz! Streams of light flew as golden light shot out. Neza quietly appeared behind Yi Xian. Celestial Emperor, the little princess has snuck off to play in the mortal world again. Do you need this subordinate to bring her back? Neza asked in a low voice. It had to be said that in these 10,000 years, under Yi Xian's careful nurturing, Neza had reached the level of the Daluo Jingxian. His talent and comprehension ability could be considered outstanding. And in these 10,000 years at Yi Xian's side, Neza felt even more reverence for Yi Xian, and truly acknowledged Yi Xian. To go from Golden Immortal to Grand Immortal in 10,000 years was simply unimaginable to Neza. But under Yi Xian's nurturing, he had done it. And when he was at the end of the road, Yi Xian took him in, making Neza one of Yi Xian's most loyal subordinates. She went to the mortal world again. Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes and frowned. Celestial Emperor, the little princess is too mischievous. I really can't force her so. Neza wanted to say something, but stopped, with a fawning look on his face. In the boundless mortal world, there are many desires. This child has cultivated with me for 10,000 years, but has never experienced anything in the mortal world. I'm afraid of her. Yi Xian's words came to a halt as he looked towards the distant horizon. Brother, look what delicious food I brought back for you. A piercing sound came from afar, followed by a beam of golden light. A young girl in a green dress appeared in front of Yi Xian, and held Yi Xian's arm with a smile, with a fawning look on her face. The young girl's figure was slender and graceful, and her crescent moon-like eyes carried a crafty expression. Her skin was as white and tender as jade, and although she wasn't as devastatingly beautiful as the fairy of the moon and the mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens, she was still a fairy that shamed the moon and the flowers. At this moment, the young girl was holding 2 strings of candy in her hand as she handed them over to Yi Xian with a fawning smile. Yaoyue, how many times have I told you not to go to the mortal world without permission? Why don't you listen? Yi Xian reprimanded her. Brother, Yaoyue won't do it again. Don't be angry. The young girl shook Yi Xian's arm and looked carefully at Yi Xian, afraid that Yi Xian would really be angry with her. Yi Yaoyue was the young girl's name, and also the name of the young girl of the past. 10,000 years ago, Yi Xian became a half-step quasi-saint. The young girl swallowed the virtuous lotus seed and absorbed Yi Xian's immortal force of the great firmament, allowing her to shed her mortal body and become a true immortal. When the young girl woke up, Yi Xian used the light of the 6 paths of samsara to condense Uncle Zhuo's soul. He wanted to reconstruct a body for the old man and reunite with his granddaughter in the mortal world, but Uncle Zhuo refused. He only hoped that Yi Xian would allow the young girl to stay by his side. This was Uncle Zhuo's final request. The old man was too stubborn and loved his granddaughter too much. This was because he knew that the child would only have the best future if she stayed by Yi Xian's side. He begged Yi Xian to take the young girl in and change her surname to Yi. From then on, she would be Yi Xian's adopted sister. Yi Xian naturally did not refuse the old man's pleas. After all, he had promised the old man in Little Rock Village that he would treat the young girl as his own sister. Chapter 652. After receiving Yi Xian's promise, the old man reincarnated and left. Since then, the little girl had been following Yi Xian. After 10,000 years of cultivation, Yi Yaoyue had just entered the great Heaven Xian immortal realm. She had grown into a big girl and no longer looked like a child. Looking at Yi Yaoyue's fawning and uneasy appearance, Yi Xian shook his head helplessly and said, "Only this time. Don't do it again. Brother, you're the best. I knew you wouldn't really be angry with me." Yi Yaoyue's laughter came from the Tongtian peak. She held a sugar figurine in her hand and teased Yi Xian from time to time. This made Yi Xian watch calmly. Then, He looked at the sky with a deep look in his eyes. It's time to go back. Yi Xian murmured to himself. In the vast world, roars shook the sky. There was a boundless prairie. There were huge peaks connecting the sky and the earth. There were also ancient beasts galloping on the vast earth. Above the sky, there were even ancient mythical birds stirring the clouds. I'm invincible. This is the ancestral land of the Wu tribe, the last pure land of the Wu tribe, and one of the most terrifying forces in the world. Thump, thump, thump. The war drums of the Wu tribe were beating. The thunder of the ninth heaven was exploding. Billowing blood energy rippled through the mountains and rivers. One by one, members of the Wu tribe walked out of their caves. They all bowed in the vast earth, as if they were waiting for someone to appear. Sunset Mountain. Quafu was tall and sturdy, with tens of ancient senior magi standing behind him. Extremely terrifying light glowed from the bodies of these ancient senior magi. Every single one of these ancient senior magi had been roaring loudly while incanting a mysterious and profound spell, as if they were trying to trigger some unknown existence. Open! Quafu's eyes glowed. Rumbling wizard light gathered in his hands, and turned into a mysterious symbol, which he threw into the air. At the same time, the dozens of senior wizards behind him also threw out the symbol in their hands, which made the sky above Sunset Mountain change horribly. Buzz! A spot of witch light appeared in the sky, and the heaven and earth in all directions shook violently. Ripples spread out in the sky, and a bronze door suddenly appeared in the sky. When the bronze door appeared in the sky, tens of thousands of shamans bowed to it and let out a deafening sound, causing the entire ancestral land of the shamans to tremble slightly. Rumble! The clouds and sky were turbulent. The wind and clouds were dancing in all directions. The nine heavens' divine thunder was crossing the sky. The bronze stone door was rumbling open, and an illusory figure was walking out of the stone door. His skin was bronze, his eyes were like the stars, and his jet-black hair hung behind his head. His face seemed to have been carved by a knife, and his tall and straight figure was like an indestructible ancient divine mountain. When his eyes opened and closed, he was looking down at the world. He was a true ancient great sorcerer, and a peerless figure in the sorcerer tribe. Although there was no aura around him, just by standing between the heavens and the earth, he gave people a feeling of wanting to worship him. When Yi returned to the ancestral land of the sorcerer tribe, tens of thousands of shamans roared, and the vast witchlight and blood aura rushed into the sky, filling the entire world. At the peak of Sunset Mountain, Quafu clenched his fists, and his face was flushed with excitement. He looked at the majestic figure in the sky, and his eyes were filled with excitement. Brother Quafu. Yi strolled in the sky, and with every step he took, the surrounding space and time were slightly disordered. His body, which seemed to be made of diamond, gave people a feeling of indestructibility. After endless time, you and I are finally reunited. Quafu strode forward and hugged Yi. Greetings, Yi. The dozens of ancient great sorcerers did not dare to be negligent, and they all bowed to Yi, their postures extremely humble. Although they were also ancient great sorcerers, compared to Yi, who was a sage to be ancient great sorcerer, they were just some juniors. Brother, where is Xiaoyi? Is she still in the celestial court? Is she okay now? Yi grabbed Quafu's arms and was quickly asking, with a touch of hope on his face. Quafu's expression changed slightly, and he forced a smile. Xiaoyi is fine. She has returned to the sorcerer tribe, so you don't have to worry. But you were injured by Emperor Jun back then. I wonder if your injuries have healed. Brother, you don't have to worry about the elixir. Emperor Jun is indeed powerful, but it's still too early for him to kill me. Although I was in seclusion to heal my injuries, I was also practicing the 9 sunshot arts, and created the 10th art in this seclusion. Even if I meet Emperor Jun again, although I dare not say that I can kill him, I will definitely be seriously injured and dying. Yi smiled, and the witchlight around him bloomed slightly. Obviously, he was very confident in his current cultivation. Good. Brother, you are indeed a peerless figure in the sorcerer tribe. In the future, you will definitely become the 13th ancestor of sorcerer, and lead the sorcerer tribe to fight the three realms again. Hearing De Yi's words, Kwafu laughed loudly. Obviously, he was in a very good mood. Brother, you haven't told me why Xiao Yi didn't come. Is she also in seclusion? This? Kwafu frowned, and a look of embarrassment flashed across his eyes. Although he had already prepared an explanation, he still did not know how to tell De Yi about the matter between Chang Yi and Yi Xian. Did something happen to Xiao Yi? Looking at Kwafu's embarrassed face, De Yi's smile disappeared. The world was quietly stagnant, and an extremely ferocious qi was growing in all directions. Obviously Chang Yi was involved, and his mind was disturbed. Suddenly, a weak female voice was heard which startled De Yi. The ferocious qi around him dissipated instantly, and he looked at the person with joy. On Sunset Peak, a slender and graceful figure was walking toward De Yi. Who else could it be but the fairy of Guanghan? This also made De Yi stride toward the fairy of Guanghan, and his eyes were filled with tenderness that he had never shown to anyone else. Xiao Yi, I haven't seen you for many years. How have you been? De Yi's voice was trembling, because this was the woman he loved. Even though countless years had passed, he still remembered her. And this had never changed. Buzz! The void surged and ripples spread. The fairy of Guanghan lowered her eyes, and a bow and arrow appeared in her hands. Then she handed them to De Yi. These are the weapons you left with me in the past. Now, it's time to return them to their rightful owner, the fairy of Guanghan said softly. Xiao Yi you? Looking at the bow and arrow that the fairy of Guanghan handed over, De Yi's smile gradually stiffened. He was not stupid. He could completely feel from the fairy of Guanghan's attitude that the two of them were no longer familiar with each other. The fairy of Guanghan gave him a feeling that she was thousands of miles away from him. Silence, silence, extreme silence. De Yi was silent for more than 10 breaths, and then he silently took the bow and arrow from the fairy of Guanghan. However, an oppressive atmosphere was growing between the two of them. Xiao Yi, can you tell me what happened to you all these years? De Yi exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi, and looked directly at the fairy of Guanghan. Unfortunately, the fairy of Guanghan did not answer. She just shook her head, turned around and walked away. This also made De Yi silent, but a touch of bitterness flashed through his eyes. Chapter 653. It's a long story. Let me tell you slowly. Kwafu came from behind and patted Yi's shoulder with a helpless look in his eyes. Brother, Xiao Yi has someone she likes, right? He stared blankly at the fairy of Guanghan as she disappeared into the distance. He smiled bitterly, and then looked at Kwafu. He was not stupid, and knew the fairy of Guanghan very well. If the fairy of Guanghan did not have someone she liked, she would not have been so distant from him. You can't force love. Let go of this relationship. Kwafu shook his head and said. In the face of Kwafu's persuasion, De Yi was not moved at all. Instead, he looked at Kwafu with burning eyes. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a fierce and domineering light flashing in them. Apparently, he was not as calm as he looked. I really want to know what kind of existence Xiao Yi's sweetheart is. Could it be that his cultivation is stronger than mine? Or is he so powerful that even you don't want to mention him? Are you afraid that I will find trouble with him and implicate the Wu tribe? He asked in a deep voice. His voice gradually became cold. Hearing Yi's words, Kwafu's face turned red, and he clenched his fists tightly. He remembered the shame of being defeated by Yi Xian in the celestial court, and Yi Xian's threatening words. This man is the master of the celestial court, and the new master of the three realms. His name is Yi Xian. Following Kwafu's tireless explanation, the matters regarding Yi Xian and the Moon Fairy were revealed one by one. De Yi even learned many of Yi Xian's deeds from Kwafu. After half a day, Kwafu finished telling Yi about Yi Xian's deeds. He lowered his eyes and became silent. From a primordial unity Xian immortal to the peak of the zenith heaven, he killed the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother, and even married the Empyrean Fairy. Not only does he have the support of the Nuwa, but he also has the support of the Tongtian and the tribe of Jiezum. He murmured to himself. Then he looked at Kwafu and said in a low voice. So, Yi Xian did not give up after marrying the Empyrean Fairy. He even married Xiao Yi in front of you and beat you up because you tried to stop him? Watching De Yi gradually calm down, Kuafu's heart trembled slightly. He knew De Yi's character too well. Whenever De Yi was unusually angry, he would be extremely calm. Although Xiao Yi married Yi Xian, Xiao Yi did not lose her virginity to him. They are husband and wife in name, but not in reality. Furthermore, Yi Xian is definitely not the weak and easily bullied Jade Emperor of the past. Under his lead, the power of the heavenly court is rapidly expanding, and it already has the power of the ancient demon court. I'm afraid that the second great calamity of the shamans and demons will happen. Brother, you don't have to say any more. Suddenly, before Kuafu could finish, De Yi waved his hand and interrupted him. Witchcraft light surrounded him, and a bright smile appeared on De Yi's face. He looked towards the 33rd layer of celestial court. He is only at the peak of the zenith heaven. Even if he is a sage to be, how can he be my opponent? He wants to revive the ancient demon court and fight against the witch tribe. How can he be compared to Dong Huangtai and Dijun? This is the funniest joke I've ever heard, he said coldly. You? Looking at De Yi's cold face, Kuafu knew that something big was about to happen. How could De Yi tolerate the fact that his beloved woman was taken away? You have just come out of seclusion. You should meet the witch ancestor first. Don't be impulsive, Kuafu anxiously advised. Because the great calamity of heaven and earth had already begun, Yi Xian was the one to face it. If the witch clan was involved in the great calamity of heaven and earth, Kuafu would simply not be able to imagine it. Great shaman, although Yi Xian is arrogant and unruly, he doesn't have any enmity towards our shaman clan. Moreover, feelings are mutual. I hope that the great shaman will not cause our shaman clan to be doomed for eternity because of his own selfishness. Suddenly, a low voice came from behind Kuafu, which made De Yi look at the source of the voice. When he opened his eyes, a cold light flashed through his eyes. Who are you? He asked calmly. Greetings, great witch Yi. I'm Sword Demon. Sword Demon saluted with his hands folded. He was neither humble nor overbearing. As a great witch of the witch tribe, his cultivation was at the peak of the zenith heaven realm. Although he could not be compared with Yi, who was an ancient great witch of the untainted land, he would not allow Yi to do anything harmful to the witch tribe, as an important member of the witch tribe. Moreover, if Yi Xian had not saved his life in the Nuwa Grand Gathering, he would have died in the hands of the Eastern Ghost Emperor. Shen Tuesday Sword Demon always remembered this favor. Naturally, he did not want to see Yi looking for trouble with Yi Xian. I've never seen you before. It seems that you are one of the great witches. Are you criticizing me now? Dong dong dong. The heavens and earth shook, and everything fell silent. Only the sound of the heavens and earth shaking could be heard. He walked slowly toward Sword Demon. When he opened and closed his eyes, it was like two big stars were rotating. An unimaginable pressure fell on Sword Demon. I dare not. It's just that Yi Xian is the master of the three realms. He has the support of the sages. If you insist on being enemies with Yi Xian, it will put the witch tribe and the celestial court on the opposite side. Naturally, I don't want to see the great witch involve the witch tribe in the dispute of the three realms, because of your own selfishness. Sword Demon was not afraid at all. He did not bend his back and said firmly, Selfishness? Haha. Suddenly De Yi laughed maniacally. His laughter caused the sorcerer tribe's heaven and earth to shake violently. His terrifying power swept out in all directions, causing some of the weaker sorcerer tribe members to cover their ears and groan. What do you mean by selfishness? Yi's face was ferocious. He stared at Sword Demon and growled. When the untainted land was created, I fought against the 10 golden crows of the demon tribe alone. I killed the 9 golden crows with a bow and arrow. I even fought with Emperor Jun for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, I was seriously injured and on the verge of death. You came to tell me. Why didn't anyone tell me that it was selfishness? There was an explosion in the sky, and the sorcerer tribe was silent. When De Yi finished speaking, the sorcerer tribe was silent, and there was a look of shame in their eyes. Even the Sword Demon's face turned pale, and he could not answer De Yi's question. The untainted land, the great witch demon tribulation. As a peerless expert in the sorcerer tribe, Day had made countless contributions to the sorcerer tribe, and many demons had died in his hands. This was an ironclad fact, and an immeasurable contribution. No one could blame him, not even the 12 ancestors of sorcerers. Little Junior, how dare you criticize me? Have you ever experienced the great calamity of heaven and earth? Have you ever seen the ancestors of my shaman tribe fight a bloody battle with the demon tribe? Do you know how many of my brothers died in that battle? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.